Chapter 5051. The moment the door opened, Wang Qian suddenly turned the steering wheel, and the jeep, which was already drifting, rushed out of the road. Ah! The girl who was pushed out of the car screamed and slammed on the brakes. The truck driver heard the car horn behind him and glanced at the rearview mirror. He stepped on the brakes to avoid the car and said to his wife, sitting in the passenger seat, "In the past year, more and more people have come to the Northwest too." Before he could finish his sentence, the driver, who was paying attention to the car behind him, realized that the door of the car behind him had opened. The driver suddenly panicked. He subconsciously turned the steering wheel and drove to the right side of the road. Beep, beep, beep. Squeak, squeak, squeak. Bang, bang. Clang, clang. All kinds of sharp, ear-piercing, and even more panic-inducing sounds were heard. The truck rushed to the right side of the road and rushed into the ditch by the roadside. The jeep rushed to the left side of the road and also rushed into the ditch. Clang, 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 bang, bang. Compared to the truck, which deliberately stepped on the brakes in advance and rushed to the right side of the road, the jeep driven by Wang Qian was like a horse that had gone wild and rushed out of the road. Tian, who was pushed out of the car, rolled on the side of the road like a rag doll. She rolled round and round, and her screams made the scalp of the couple in the truck who braked to avoid the road tingle. But at this time, they couldn't care less about the girl who suddenly rolled out of the car. They had to stabilize the car. The front of the truck fell into the ditch, and the driver and his wife slammed into the front windshield. The truck flipped over, and the front of the truck sank into the ditch. The seatbelt pulled the driver and his wife back and slammed them into their seats. The truck stopped, and the couple hit their chests. In the car behind, Xia Jinyuan directly slammed on the brakes twice. The car was still drifting, and he shouted at the young man who slammed into the door, "Get out of the car and check on the girl who rolled down. Don't move her body. Do you understand?" He didn't know if her back, neck, and internal organs were seriously injured. Suddenly moving her body would only worsen the injury. The young man, who was dizzy from the collision, screamed, "Ah!" in response to Xia Jinyuan. After the military jeep was parked, Xia Jinyuan was like an attacking leopard as he violently flipped into the ditch on the road. The driver crashed into the side of the jeep, which was deformed. Wang Qian, who was hit directly, fainted. Blood slowly flowed out from his head along with the shattered window. Yusi, who was sitting in the front passenger seat, was in a much better condition than Wang Qian. When the airbag popped out, she first hit the airbag, then slammed back into the seat. Her body shook violently, and she fainted. So far, other than the car crashing into the gully and her arm crashing into it, there were no obvious injuries on her body. At least, she wasn't bleeding. Ganganimbu's condition was not much better, but he knew how to protect himself better than the young man in the car. The moment the car crashed into the gully, he protected his head. When the car rolled over, his feet were facing the side of the car, while his head was facing the other side. He shouldn't even think about getting a hostage. He should hurry up and escape. Xia Jinyuan had already rushed over, and the frightened truck driver and his wife also got out of the car. The driver's wife wanted to check the severity of the damage to their car first, but the driver said, "What are you looking at? Look at the person lying on the roadside. Find a tripod and place it in front. Hurry." Human lives were more important. The damaged car could still be repaired. Chapter 5052. After the truck driver opened the Northwest National Highway, he had been working on this line all year round. Throughout the year, except for the snow-covered mountains, he didn't rest at all. He was used to the scenery along the way and had seen too many car accidents, even more tragic ones than the one in front of him. He had been in a car accident before and had been rescued by passing tourists. Now that he had been caught in a car accident, he would try his best to help those in need since he and his wife were unharmed. Life was too short. Kindness was the foundation of being human. One could not do evil, and one could not leave others in the lurch. One had to be able to live up to their conscience. Perhaps one day, they would need help too. The couple did not check on the damage to their truck. As the driver ran, he kept telling his wife what to do. "Go check on the girl. I'll go check on the jeep. If the girl is fine, I'll come and help." The jeep had flipped over, so the people in the car were probably dead. Xia Jinyuan had already run to Tian, who was lying on the road and screaming in pain. He did not have much time to check if the girl was seriously injured. He bent down and said in a low voice with a reassuring power, "You're safe now. Lie down and don't move. Kai-yin will come and accompany you." Kai-yin, the boy who had been traveling with Xia Jinyuan. Kai-yin was still running behind. He was an ordinary college student who did not exercise much. Even if he ran with all his might, he was still lagging behind Xia Jinyuan. Tian, who had fallen from the car, felt pain all over her body. Her internal organs felt like they were on fire. She seemed to hear someone whispering something in her ear. The low voice had a peace of mind that would keep death away from her. It was also very warm, so warm that she couldn't help but want to get closer. Save me, save me. She stretched out her arms weakly and wanted to grab the warmth. If she did, she would be saved. Her fingers moved lightly, but she did not have the strength to lift them. Seeing this, Xia Jinyuan gently held Tian's slightly better left hand and slowly put down. "You're saved now. Lie down. The ambulance will be here soon." Her right palm scraped the asphalt road, and the skin on her palm was abraded. Although the wound was not deep, it was hideous. As he spoke, Xia Jinyuan saw the girl's lips trembling slightly. She seemed to be very cold. He quickly took off his jacket and covered Tian's body. Tian. Kai-yin, who was running with all his might, saw the person who had rolled out of the car. His face was as pale as a sheet. He stumbled a few steps and fell with a thud. Xia Jinyuan got up and left him to Kai-yin. Her lips moved. She wanted to speak loudly to make him stay. The warmth of despair was like a drowning person finding a piece of driftwood or a lost person in the desert finding a source of water. Her forehead was grazed, and blood flowed down her heavy eyelids. Tian wanted to open her eyes to see who it was, but her eyelids were too heavy, so heavy that her vision was hazy. Don't move. The driver's wife came over and said anxiously. Kai-yin crawled and rolled over. His voice was trembling. Tian, don't sleep. Open your eyes. Chapter 50-53. Seeing his friend's clothes torn, face covered in blood, and eyes still closed, Kai-yin was so scared that he thought she was dead. It wasn't until Tian responded in a low voice that Kai-yin realized she was still alive. Still alive, you're still alive. He cried and laughed at the same time, remembering Xia Jinyuan's warning not to move Tian. On the other side, Gonggeningbu endured the pain and tried to pull out his leg that was stuck in the deformed car door. He was cruel to others, but he was also cruel to himself. He knew that if he didn't escape now, he wouldn't have another chance. Even if his left leg was injured again, he didn't care. The car was flipped on its left side, and even the left accelerator was damaged. The full tank of gasoline flowed out like water, and the smell of gasoline in the car was getting stronger. Gonggeningbu, who had yet to pull his legs out from the ground, seemed to have caught something in his hands. Just as he was about to throw it away, he realized that it was a lighter. A lighter. He needed to start a fire to escape into the Gobi Desert. At a time like this, Gonggeningbu's mind was very clear, and he knew exactly what he needed to do next. Before he could escape from the car, he saw a figure standing in front of the car. Gonggeningbu gripped the lighter in his hand tightly and looked at his leg that was still stuck in the car. His eyes flashed fiercely. He had to think of a way. He had to think of a good way. First of all, he couldn't let the guy outside find out that his leg was stuck in the car. Xia Jinyuan, who rushed over, saw a large oil leak, and black engine oil spilled everywhere. He quickly scanned the car and didn't see any smoke. Only then did he relax a little. He rushed to the front of the car. Through the cracked windshield, he could feel a fierce gaze staring at him from inside the car. The hostage was still in the car, and so was the criminal. Xia Jinyuan didn't choose to arrest the criminal immediately. Instead, he rescued the hostage first. The car was flipped on its left side, and the right was hanging in the air. Even though Xia Jinyuan was tall enough, he couldn't directly open the door of the right passenger seat. He could only choose to climb in from the front and open the door. Wang Qian intentionally let you see who was in the front passenger seat. Escape. The moment he rushed out, he used the central control to open the 4 car windows. It could be said that Wang Qian made the wisest decision in the most dangerous moment. As Xia Jinyuan climbed, the overturned vehicle shook slightly. Gong Ningbu licked his cracked lips with a ferocious look on his face. His lips were probably broken because he tasted blood. That's right, he loved the taste of blood. The smell of gasoline in the car was getting thicker and thicker. It was so thick that it felt like one was in a tank of gasoline and could suffocate to death at any time. Clang! The car door opened, and the strong smell of gasoline rushed out. Gonganimbu, who was motionless in the car, finally saw what the soldier who was chasing him looked like. He held the lighter and placed his hand on the lighter's gear. Licking his lips, he grinned and said, "Soldier, are you trying to save someone? If you reach your hand in again, the thing in my hand will get angry." There was a lighter in his hand and a few pieces of paper beside it. Xia Jinyuan glanced at him and slowly reached out his hand. He opened the car door completely with one hand and squatted in front of the car. He didn't take Gonganingbu's threat to heart. Instead, he smiled coldly and said, "Do you want to die?" He glanced at the lighter and the paper, and the sneer on his face deepened. "Are you sure you want to die?" No, Gonganingbu didn't want to die. Chapter 50-54. His thoughts were immediately seen through. The long scar on Gongan Ningbu's face twitched violently, making him look even more ferocious. "I dare to die if I drag you along with me." Gongan Ningbu was a lunatic who could do anything. If pushed too hard, he would go crazy. In the game between the two parties, Xia Jinyuan was at a disadvantage because of his scruples. In addition, his line of sight was blocked by the two seats in front of him, so he did not immediately notice that one of Gongan Ningbu's legs was stuck. "Okay, I won't move." As he spoke, Xia Jinyuan discreetly looked at the two hostages trapped in the car. The driver, Wang Qian, was seriously injured. His waist was pinched, and the airbag popped out to protect him. There was blood on the left side of his head, caused by hitting the pillar when the car overturned. Yu Si, who was in the front passenger seat, was the least injured. There were no signs of injury, and judging from her breathing, she seemed to have fainted from fright and was still unconscious. Wang Qian needed to be rescued immediately. Xia Jinyuan, who had a rough idea of what to do, stared coldly at the felon who was struggling to make a way out for himself. He did not push him too hard. If he did, Gongan Ningbu, whose hands were already stained with several lives, would indeed set the car on fire once he went crazy. Gongan Ningbu originally thought that his threat would make the other party hesitate, but he did not expect to meet a soldier who did not play by the rules. He was not afraid of being scared. He grinned, revealing 2 rows of yellow teeth, and laughed sinisterly. "Is that so? I'll shout 1, 2, 3. If you don't leave, I'll set the car on fire. If we die together." Bang! The car exploded, and everyone died. "I'm fine. If I'm caught, I'll die anyway. I'm not afraid. But they're different. Look at how young they are, and they drive their own cars. Their families must be rich. They could have lived, but you let me set the car on fire. If I die, I die, but if you die, you die. You die trying to save people, but in the end, you die with a bad reputation. Is it worth it for you to be a soldier?" He was eloquent, his thoughts were clear, and his logic was clear. He was so calm that even Xia Jinyuan was slightly shocked. He had carried out countless missions and encountered countless criminals who were struggling on the brink of death, but he had never seen one as calm as this felon in front of him. However, the calmer he was, the more certain he was that he wanted to live. Only those who wanted to live would be so calm and look for a way to escape. Those who wanted to die would really drag someone down with them. They would ignite the fire earlier and would not say a single word of nonsense. Xia Jinyuan, who had figured out what she was thinking, pretended to be hesitant. He frowned, and his calm gaze suddenly became fierce. "What do you want?" The smell of gasoline in the car was getting fainter and fainter, and it was all coming out from the open car door. Xia Jinyuan tightened his grip on the car door. He was not worried about the lighter in Gongan Ningbu's hand, but he was worried that the felon would take the opportunity to take the hostage again while he was stuck in a traffic jam. If he were to take hostages again, that was good too. He could let him out first. Only by letting him out would he be able to rescue Wang Qian, who was seriously injured and unconscious. His every move was observed by Gonganingbo. Although Gonganingbo was delighted to see him relenting, the cunning Gonganingbo did not let his guard down. 2 things. First, prepare a carriage for me immediately. Secondly, you must be at least 1 kilometer away from me. If you can do it, I'll let them go and you save them. Impossible. Xia Jinyuan's expression changed as he shouted. Then we'll die together, Gonganingbo roared. Just as Xia Jinyuan expected, he suddenly leaned over and rushed to the front passenger seat. Chapter 50-55. Xia Jinyuan was blocked by the car door and had no way to rescue Yusi in time. A very thin and sharp piece of paper was pressed against Yusi's neck. Xia Jinyuan was in the way of the car door and had no way to rescue Yusi. His leg also broke free from the crack the moment he rushed out with brute force. The pain was so excruciating that his legs trembled violently. I'll give you 5 minutes. If you don't arrange it for me, I'll kill her. I'll kill her. Gonganingbo roared with bloodshot eyes. There was a hint of smugness in his eyes. Set the car on fire? No, he wouldn't. He didn't want to die. He had always wanted hostage. Yusi, who had fainted, suddenly opened her eyes. Her eyes were open, but she was still in a daze. She only remembered what had happened to her when she heard a fierce and cold laughter. Ah! She screamed. Before she could finish speaking, her neck was cut painfully. Scream again and I'll kill you. The fierce voice stopped Yusi's scream. Xia Jinyuan gently closed his eyes. His voice was full of energy, so there shouldn't be any major problems. Gonganingbo was already laughing wildly. Did you see that? Even God was on his side. So what if he was a powerful soldier? The hostage was in the car. Although he didn't believe that he would set the car on fire, he had scruples. As long as he had scruples, he would have a chance to escape. Xia Jinyuan glanced at him coldly. Gonganingbo almost thought that his plan had been seen through by Xia Jinyuan. The next second, he saw the guy who also had scruples nodding. Okay, I'll arrange it for you. Very good. Gonganingbo finally breathed a sigh of relief. 5 minutes was enough for him to arrange everything and for Yi Qian to arrive. She sped all the way here and first saw the military jeep parked in the middle of the road. Then she saw the accident scene. Before the civilian vehicle came to a complete stop, the police officers Duo Ji and Ping Quo had already opened the door and got out. They saw Tian lying on the ground. The first thing they did when they got out of the car was to check on the injured person. Yi Qian, who got out of the car, immediately saw a familiar figure in front of the overturned car. You guys check on the injured. I'll go to the front to take a look. After Yi Qian jumped out of the car, he ran forward without waiting for the 2 policemen to reply. She also had a police pistol in her hand. The director of the Shiji City Public Security Bureau said that the criminals could be killed on the spot if necessary. At that time, Yi Qian applied for permission to use a police gun and told the director that she was a sniper in the army. The chief of the Public Security Bureau of Shiji City agreed on the spot that a sniper had used a pistol to kill a criminal. Xia Jinyuan also saw Yi Qian. What's the situation? She ran towards Xia Jinyuan, who was running towards her. Her heart sank when she saw his gloomy face. No wonder he could escape for 2 years without being caught. He's quite cunning. Xia Jinyuan knew that he had missed the best chance to rescue Qin Jiai. His foot was stuck. I didn't notice it immediately. Your vision is obstructed? Yi Qian pointed out the problem. She knew Xia Jinyuan's ability. If he didn't notice the problem immediately, it must be because of his line of sight. Otherwise, it was impossible that he didn't notice it. In addition, there were hostages in the car, so he was even more apprehensive. Yes. Xia Jinyuan nodded and said, Wang Qian needs to be rescued immediately. Yusi is being held hostage by him. He asked me to arrange a car and to retreat 1 kilometer. Otherwise, he will kill the hostage. This time, he will do as he says, Xia Jinyuan added angrily. Chapter 50-56. Xia Jinyuan blamed himself for not noticing that Gonganingbo's leg was stuck in the car. If he had noticed, Yusi would have been rescued. On the other hand, if he had noticed that Gonganingbo's leg was stuck in the car, he probably wouldn't have chosen to rescue you see because Wang Qian, who was seriously injured and unconscious, was still in a car. Under the circumstances, he wouldn't have been able to rescue both of them at the same time. If he had rescued you see first, Gong'an Ningbo would definitely have retaliated and done something even crazier, such as killing Wang Qian in the car. But he didn't notice it immediately, so there was still a thorn in his heart. Yi Qian was about to say something when he suddenly heard a ferocious and crazy roar coming from the overturned Jeep. "Don't King play tricks on me. Car, hurry up and prepare a car for me. Hurry." The driver and his wife, who were involved in the rescue, also heard it. They were both shocked. The driver had wanted to go into the overturned Jeep to rescue you see, but fortunately, Xia Jinyuan had caught up and stopped him in time. "Old Tan Yui." The driver's wife was so scared that her hands and feet were trembling. Fortunately, the driver had been on the road a lot, so he was brave enough to say softly, "Don't be afraid. There are police and soldiers. We're not afraid. Squat down and talk to the lady." The husband and wife, like Kai Yin, talked to Tian Tian. With her husband's courage, the driver's wife felt a little more at ease, but she didn't have the courage to talk to Tian Tian anymore. You see, who was being held hostage, didn't make a sound. She was so scared that she couldn't think straight. She was being manipulated by Gong'an Ningbo without any self-awareness. The crazy roar made Yi Qian's heart skip a beat. She ran back with Xia Jinyuan and said, "Give him the car right now. He should get him out of the car first." Xia Jinyuan, who felt a stab in his heart, had a cold look on his face. Even the surrounding atmosphere became a little oppressive. The hostage, you see, is completely terrified. She can't move. No one knew him better than Yi Qian. His cold expression made Yi Qian's heart ache. Is Wang Qian still unconscious? As soon as Xia Jinyuan nodded, Yi Qian hurriedly said, "That's right. Even if you found out that the felon's leg was stuck and couldn't move, even if you rescued you see, you wouldn't be able to rescue Wang Qian immediately. Wang Qian would only be in a desperate situation, and the felon would retaliate even more crazily. Captain Xia, you don't have to blame yourself for not discovering that the criminal's leg was stuck. Luring the criminal out of the car and then rescuing the seriously injured was the best decision. I think Captain Xia should have already thought of it. We are all doing our best to rescue all the hostages, so we don't have to blame ourselves. It was the duty of every soldier to protect the country and the safety of the people. When Xia Jinyuan realized that he had failed to protect the safety of the people, he felt very guilty as a soldier. Rescuing the hostages, especially when the hostages couldn't move, made the entire rescue extremely difficult. Even as a Special Forces soldier, Xia Jinyuan had to be careful with every step. He couldn't afford to make the slightest mistake. When rescuing the hostages, the most important thing was to first stabilize the kidnapper, then stabilize the hostages' cooperation, and not blindly struggle. Only then could the rescue plan be carried out. Before Yi Qian and the two policemen arrived, Xia Jinyuan was in control of the entire situation, including holding back the driver who wanted to help. It wasn't easy to quickly stabilize the situation by himself. Chapter 50-57. Xia Jinyuan heaved a sigh of relief. He understood what she said and calmly made arrangements without being disturbed. The criminal hasn't seen you yet. You'll be in the dark, and I'll be in the light. I'll drive and cover you. You take the opportunity to get close to Gong'animbu. I'll retreat 1,000 meters before you act. Although he blamed himself, it didn't affect Xia Jinyuan's control over the entire situation. He knew very well what to do next to better rescue all the hostages. Okay. Yi Qian nodded. She glanced at the two parked cars and flashed the police pistol in her hand. Drive the Jeep over. I'll take care of the rest. There were two sacrificed police officers in the civilian vehicle, so they naturally couldn't drive it over. Seeing the police phone in her hand, Xia Jinyuan's dark eyes flashed with hostility. Okay. He then looked at the police officer who was running over. His dark eyes narrowed slightly, and the plan he had just laid out was once again perfected. Time was of the essence, and all arrangements had to be made quickly. For the few people involved in rescuing the hostages, time passed too quickly, but for Gonganimbu, time passed too slowly. He first climbed from the back to the front passenger seat. In such a small space, most of his body was pressed against UC, who was so frightened that she had lost her voice. He released UC's seatbelt, and with a malicious gaze, he fiercely supported the weak hostage. The thin and sharp plastic piece was pressed against UC's carotid artery. "Behave yourself, or I'll kill you." After saying that, he pushed UC out of the car. UC, who was so frightened that she was unconscious, didn't make a sound after she fell out. UC's mind was severely damaged, and she couldn't move. Wang Qian was seriously injured and unconscious, and Gonganimbu had a strong desire to survive. Xia Jinyuan was betting that Gonganimbu wouldn't act rashly before he got back into the car. Therefore, he chose to agree to Gonganimbu's request. Gonganimbu, who ran out of the car, didn't care about Wang Qian, who was still in the car. He didn't want to waste his energy on a hostage who he didn't know was dead or alive. He pressed the sharp plastic piece against UC's neck again and dragged UC out of the Jeep with one hand. He was extremely alert and walked towards the side of the road. Just as he approached the road, he saw two policemen. He lost control again and shouted, "Get the F***CK away from me. Do you hear me? Get the F***CK away from me. Where's the car? Where's my car?" Cayenne, who was sitting in the middle of the road with Tian, looked up in shock and saw UC being held hostage. Thinking of what the two policemen had told him just now, Cayenne bit the tip of his tongue with his teeth to suppress the shock that rushed to his throat from his chest. Don't look. The policeman told him not to look in front. He must not look in front. He just had to take good care of Tian. He just had to take good care of Tian. Tian's situation was still considered good. Cayenne accompanied her and kept talking to her, causing her to wake up bit by bit. At this moment, she could still speak intermittently. However, she didn't know about Wang Qian and UC's situation, and Cayenne, who was both shocked and scared, didn't dare to tell her, fearing that she would be agitated. Tian, who had just woken up, also heard the voice that scared her. She, who had just recovered from her shock, was shocked again. "Young man, don't look. He's far away from us and can't hurt us. Don't be afraid." Cayenne was very scared. The driver even comforted him in a low voice. "Don't worry. We have the police and the People's Liberation Army to protect us. Your friend will be fine. They're all thinking of ways to save him." Chapter 50-58. The driver only saw that Cayenne was scared, but he didn't realize that Tian was also scared. Yes, don't be afraid. The three of us will accompany the lady. Just listen to the police and don't run around." The driver's wife, who was also very scared, comforted Cayenne and herself. "I just saw a woman from the People's Liberation Army. She wasn't scared at all. You're still a young man. What are you afraid of?" Cayenne was speechless. He was scared. However, with the driver and his wife accompanying him, he did feel much more at ease. He could even comfort Tian, whose eyes were already filled with fear. It's okay. Lie down properly. The ambulance will be here soon. Just wait a little longer." The two policemen who were warned immediately stopped and retreated step by step. Gonganimbu was still worried. They had guns in their hands. They would only be safe if they were far enough away that they couldn't see them. He shouted at them, Back off! Don't let me see you." Xia Jinyuan started the car. The sound of the engine attracted Gonganimbu's attention. In the gully on the left side of the road, which was the side where the Jeep had overturned, Yi Qian, who had already started moving, tensed her waist and sped up. She chose to shoot blindly from Gonganimbu's line of sight. She needed to kill the felon with one shot. The police phone was a Type 92 9mm pistol with a magazine capacity of 15 rounds. The moment Yi Qian got the phone, she was very glad that only Ping So and Duo Ji had guns. The two policemen who died didn't have guns. The Jeep was about to overturn. Yi Qian quickly went around the front of the Jeep. When she went around, she glanced at the front windshield that was cracked like a spiderweb. Among the fragments, she vaguely saw a motionless figure lying sideways by the completely deformed left door. That was Wang Qian. Yi Qian tightened her grip on the gun in her hand. With a fierce look in her eyes, she rushed out of the front of the car. Xia Jinyuan, who was in the open, had already stopped the jeep. He jumped out of the car and shook the car keys in his hand. He looked over Gong Ningbu's shoulder without leaving a trace and saw Yi Qian holding the gun. When Gong Ningbu saw the car keys dangling in the air, his ferocious face tightened his gaze, not daring to relax at all. Put the car keys. As soon as he opened his mouth, his beastly instinct for danger seemed to have sensed something, and he slashed at Yuxi's neck with his weapon. Bang! The gunshot rang out before he could react. Before he could finish cutting his throat, a bullet pierced through the back of his head with the scent of death. At a certain distance, the bullet penetrated his hard skull and stopped in his brain. Blood did not flow out immediately. The moment the two policemen who had retreated far away heard the gunshot, they dashed over. You got it. He should have succeeded. Regardless of the distance, the snipers in the army should be able to kill a serious criminal with one shot. Two policemen dashed over. Xia Jinyuan leaped up and raised his leg to kick Gong'an Ningbo, who had yet to fall to the ground. From the shooting to the kick, everything happened in the blink of an eye. The confrontation that lasted for nearly half an hour ended with the death of a serious criminal. Gong Ningbu, who was kicked to the ground, had his eyes wide open even before he died. There was a touch of horror in his ferocious expression that could not be erased. Sensing the danger behind him, Gong Ningbu, who had a strong desire to live, felt afraid. The horror of being crushed by an avalanche rose directly from the bottom of his heart. He sensed it, but it was too late. Before he died, he even heard the gunshot behind him. Chapter 50-59. Gunshot. Who fired the shot? With shock, unwillingness, and struggle, Gong'an Ningbu, who did not even know who shot him, fell headfirst into the wide gully behind him. His head hit the rocks in the gully, and his blood mixed with something white finally flowed out, meandering into the crevices and staining the white sand on the ground. His hands were full of evil, and the kindness in his heart had long been devoured by evil. The felon who killed thousands of Tibetan antelopes, brutally killed 3 volunteers, and a police officer was finally shot dead. The blood he shed was stained with evil, and it was a blasphemy to the earth. Xia Jinyuan held Yuxi, whose eyes were blank. Even the gunshot did not pull her back. She slid down Xia Jinyuan's arm with a blank expression. Xia Jinyuan let her sit down and shouted at Kai Yin, who was still talking to Tian Tian. Kai Yin! Kai Yin! Xia Jinyuan was worried that the rescued hostage would be scared out of her wits. There had been such cases before. The moment the gunshot rang out, Kai Yin was so scared that his body trembled violently, like a bird startled by the twang of a bow. When he heard Brother Bing, who had brought him here, calling for him, he scrambled over. Yi Qian, who had put away her pistol, ran over and took Yuxi from Xia Jinyuan's arms. The crisis was resolved. She was more suitable to take care of Yuxi than Xia Jinyuan. I'll go save Wang Qian. Xia Jinyuan withdrew his arm and quickly got up. 2 policemen ran over. Xia Jinyuan only said, "Successful kill." The 2 of them did not check and quickly approached the overturned jeep. The driver looked carefully. Seeing this, he patted his chest and said to his wife, "I'll go over and help. You stay with Mississippi, Old Tan." Her husband wanted to go over again. As his wife, she was a little reluctant. Who knew if something would happen again? It's okay. They need help. The driver ran over. What could happen? There were policemen and soldiers. There was nothing to be afraid of. Also, the one who fired the shot just now was that female soldier. She was so brave. She even dared to shoot. The criminal should have been shot by her. She deserved it. This kind of person should be killed and left alive to not harm others. The bold driver even pulled Kai Yin, whose legs were so weak that he couldn't run anymore, to Yi Qian's side. He even looked at Yi Qian curiously. Out of the corner of his eye, he suddenly saw the guy lying in the ditch. Blood was flowing all over the ground. Even though the driver was brave, he couldn't help but shudder. Oh my God, he was really shot to death. Thank you, big brother. Yi Qian thanked him and returned the driver's gaze. It was better for the commoners not to watch such a bloody scene, as it would leave a psychological scar. The faint voice was slightly cold. The driver immediately retracted his gaze and said hurriedly, "You're welcome. I'll help if I can, but I can't cause trouble for you." He pointed at the overturned Jeep and asked, "Should I go over and help?" Yichien smiled. "Thank you very much. Please take care of your own safety." The driver's kindness accentuated Gonganimbu's evil. Yichien watched the driver leave. Then he said to Cayenne, who was sweating profusely, "Come, let's help her to the car first." Cayenne didn't even dare to look at the ditch. He hurriedly nodded and followed Yichien to help Yusi to the car. The smell of blood drifted over with the wind and entered Cayenne's nose. The smell of blood made Cayenne glance at the ditch out of the corner of his eye. He only dared to take a peek. When he saw that the person was motionless, he didn't dare to look any further. Chapter 50-60. Yichien saw all of Cayenne's little movements. It was normal for boys to be curious. Now that the criminal who had traumatized them had been shot dead, they should feel better after taking a look. Yichien thought. Cayenne, who only dared to take a glance, chanted Amit Ba in his heart. He was really King dead. Blood was flowing from the back of his head. He must have been. He glanced at the female soldier who was helping Yusi to the left. "Ah, she's so pretty." At this moment, Cayenne's eyes lit up when he looked at Yichien, but he quickly withdrew his gaze. She had blasted the fugitive's head into pieces so beautifully. Thinking about it, he was quite scared. If it were him, he wouldn't have dared to blow up the criminal's head, even if he had a gun. That's not right. He was just an ordinary citizen. How could he blow up someone's head? Soldiers couldn't either. It was a special situation. Yusi was helped into the car and sat down. Cayenne saw that she didn't have any other injuries besides her clothes being stained with dust and a scratch on her forehead. The tension in his heart eased a little. He looked at the female soldier who was holding a military water bottle and pouring water to wet her hands. He hesitated for a moment before saying, "Sis, was she too scared?" Yichien wanted to splash cold water on Yusi's face to stimulate her to come back to her senses. He nodded. Yes, she was too scared. She needs to wake up. He patted Yusi's pale face with his wet hands. "Do you have a towel or a handkerchief? Is a silk scarf okay?" "Yes." Here. Cayenne, who only knew how to follow, unzipped Yusi's jacket pocket and took out a small handkerchief. She bought this as soon as she got off the plane. I asked her why she bought it. She said she bought it first and that it would come in handy sooner or later. "Sis, don't you think this is what the old people used to say?" I didn't mean it to be a prophecy. Yichien took the handkerchief and smiled. "It's a very pretty handkerchief. Any girl would like it." Then, "Sis, do you like it?" Yichien, who was pouring water into her handkerchief, glanced at the talkative boy and saw the uncontrollable nervousness in his eyes. She knew that the boy was using words to release his tension. "Me? We wear military uniforms all year round, so we don't need them." "Sis, you're a captain, right?" "Sister, how old are you? You're already a captain at such a young age?" "Did he join the army very early?" "Joining the army at the age of 18? That's not right. Some of my parents joined the army too. I heard that they even made contributions. I didn't see him as an officer when he came back to visit his family." Cayenne was originally an outgoing and talkative boy. In addition, his family background was good and he was generous. From junior high school to university, he was very likable. In addition, he was also quite handsome. He was eloquent and knew how to make girls happy, so girls liked him even more. However, Yichien always had a headache when it came to guys who talked too much to her. If it weren't for the special circumstances and the fear in Cayenne's eyes, she would have really left without keeping him company. 22 years old. Joining the army is considered early. After answering the question, Yichien used the wet handkerchief to gently wipe Yusi's cheeks. Cayenne, who was beside her, exclaimed, 22 years old. You're the same age as me. I'm also 22 years old. Then I still have to call you sis. What a waste, what a waste. Joining the army is considered early. Did you join the army after graduating from high school? Why did you think of joining the army? But I heard that it's very difficult for female soldiers to be selected. You're quite lucky. Yichien sighed softly in her heart and turned to look at him seriously. You see hasn't woken up yet. You should talk to her more. It would have been fine if he had asked other questions, but he just had to ask questions that she couldn't answer. Chapter 5061. Cayenne blinked and said, Oh, okay, I thought she was fine, so I just wanted to talk to you. Cayenne immediately forgot what he had just asked and kept talking to UC like he did with Tion. He even patted UC's face from time to time. 1 inch came from the side of the road. As Wang Qian's lower body was stuck in the car, they couldn't rescue him directly. After a short discussion, the two policemen from Xia Jinyuan decided to put the overturned Jeep on its side. Another 2 trucks and a private car passed by. When the driver saw the car accident, they thought it was a collision between 2 vehicles and stopped to rescue Wang Qian. The rescue team of 4 became a rescue team of 11 people. In order to prevent the vehicle from vibrating and causing a second injury to Wang Qian, Xia Jinyuan requisitioned the sloping wooden pedal that was used to unload the truck and stuck it on the side that was suspended in the air. Then he tied it with 2 thick hemp ropes and shouted, 1, 2, 1 to push it. The sloping wooden pedal on the side that was suspended in the air was pulled down by the 4 enthusiastic drivers every time the vehicle was pushed down. With the cooperation of 8 people and the continuous guidance of 3 people on both sides, the overturned vehicle was slowly moved down bit by bit. Although the vehicle shook, it wouldn't cause a second injury to Wang Qian. Everyone was working hard to rescue Wang Qian. With Xia Jinyuan around, Yi Qian only needed to take care of Yusi. As for the dead felon, Gong'an Ningbo, he was covered with an old blanket. The police officers had put in the car to keep out the cold when they were out on a mission overnight. They didn't want to scare the enthusiastic drivers and passengers who participated in the rescue. The people who participated in the rescue actually saw it, but they didn't know that the person lying on the ground was a dead felon. They thought he was an unlucky person who died in a car accident. When the overturned Jeep was put on its side, Yusi finally came back to her senses. She blinked a few times, and her eyes slowly regained their focus. Then, her lips began to tremble violently, and her body and hands began to tremble as well. Yi Qian was afraid that she would bite her tongue in her trembling, so he immediately stuffed a wet patch into Yusi's mouth. Raising his voice slightly, he said gently, Yusi, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. You're safe now. Do you understand? You're very safe now. Look, Cayenne is with you. Cayenne immediately understood what Yi Qian meant. He held Yusi's trembling hand tightly and said loudly, Yusi, Cayenne, we've all been saved. Wang Qian, Tian, and I are all fine. Hurry up and say something to me. We are all saved. We are all fine. Really? Did you see that? That's the People's Liberation Army. Haven't you always wanted to find a soldier to be your boyfriend? Let me tell you, you don't even need me to introduce you. There's already one outside. Yi Qian didn't know whether to laugh or cry. There was still time to paint Captain Xia's face. Damn handsome. He's even more handsome than the most handsome kid in our school. Really, I'm not lying to you. He's even more handsome than a celebrity. He's tall and handsome. You'll definitely like him when you see him. He's really a handsome soldier, a military officer, a lieutenant colonel. If you don't look now, you won't have a chance anymore. Tian will snatch him away. Yi Jian didn't know if it was because of Cayenne's familiar voice, or the fact that Cayenne mentioned that he was a handsome soldier, or the fact that Cayenne said that he would be snatched away by Tian. But Yi Jian saw Yusi burst into tears before throwing herself into Cayenne's arms and crying loudly. Chapter 5062. Cayenne. She cried loudly and cursed loudly. You 2 bastards caused me so much trouble. I almost lost my life. Yusi's loud voice made Yi Qian feel relieved. It was fine as long as she cried. If she continued to cry and curse at the same time, it would be less of a problem. When the time came, they would send her to the hospital and let the doctor observe her and decide whether or not she should be hospitalized. After surviving the disaster, Cayenne didn't care about the difference between men and women. He hugged Yusi, who was crying loudly in his arms. Then Yi Qian saw a big boy start crying. His tears fell onto Yusi's head. Yes, my 2 bastards. They're both F asterisk king bastards. Everything is fine now. It's okay, we're fine. We've been saved. We're still sitting in a military jeep right now. Let me tell you, this jeep is really big, and there's also a satellite communication device. It's like the one you saw on TV. Do you want to take a look? There's also a very handsome officer. He's the one driving this jeep. Do you want to take a look? I guarantee you'll like it. I'll take you to take a look now. Or do you want to wash your face after you've cried enough? Yi Qian rubbed his forehead and said to Kai Yin, "You stay with UC for now. I'll go take a look at Wang Qian." In order to wake his good friend up, Kai Yin, who had been selling Xia Jinyuan's good looks, cried and nodded. He pulled UC from his arms and said, "Do you see that? There's a very, very beautiful soldier beside me, Captain. She's even prettier than a celebrity. You'll know that I'm not lying when you see her. There really is a very, very handsome male officer." Yi Qian, who was even prettier than a celebrity, smiled at UC, who was looking up at him. "You see, you're saved now. All danger is far away from you. A car will send you back to Shiji City later. For now, you and Kai Yin should rest in the jeep." UC cried until she was out of breath. Her eyes were blurred by tears, and she couldn't see clearly who was talking to her. She only knew that she was safe now. The pervert who had jumped into the car and held a knife to her throat was no longer there. Choking with sobs, she said, "Thank you," a few times and continued to pull Kai Yan's sleeve and cry. As for the handsome soldier brother who was more handsome than a celebrity, and the beautiful soldier sister who was more beautiful than a celebrity, she did not hear any of it. Yi Qian got out of the car and immediately joined in the rescue of Wang Qian. The jeep on the left was completely deformed and caved in from the impact. Even though the front of the jeep was on the other side of the ravine, it was now easier for them to rescue Wang Qian. Due to the remote location, the road was flat and there were no obstacles on either side. The accident happened on a road that had never happened since the construction of the national highway. Ambulances and fire engines could not come immediately, so the rescue work could only rely on themselves. This was also why all the drivers who were passing by would stop and participate in the rescue. Those who were familiar with this part of the road knew the situation. The director of the Shiji City Public Security Bureau and the director of the Gangsha County Police Station, who had rushed over, immediately knew the situation after killing the criminal, including the fact that the hostage, Wang Qian, was trapped in the jeep and urgently needed to be rescued. The criminal, Ganganimbu, was shot in the back of the head by a sniper from the army and was killed on the spot. When the news came, the director of the Shiji City Public Security Bureau drank 2 large cups of warm water. The director of the Gangsha County Police Station, who was sitting in the car, held his phone tightly with one hand. 2 streams of tears flowed down his tanned face. Brothers who fought with him on the front line, rest in peace. Chapter 5063. The criminal has been killed, and he can no longer stir up trouble. He won't make you worry anymore. Rest in peace, my brothers. The Gangsha County Police Station superintendent covered his face with his hands that were so rough that there were fine black lines on the back of his palms. He was panting heavily. Inside the car, the 3 policemen who were driving the car were already soaked in tears. The policemen at the Gangsha County Police Station already knew that their big brother, Deng Tsiwang, and Ada, who had joined the police force for less than 3 years, had died. The entire police station was shrouded in grief, and everyone's faces were filled with deep sorrow. The old man who had worked in a reception office for his entire life and didn't want to leave even after retirement wiped his tears and murmured, sacrificed again, wait for me to come back. I'll tell Ada and Siwang's families. Don't tell them yet. I have to go to Ada and Siwang's house to apologize." The superintendent informed the station with red eyes and kept the matter from the families of the 2 policemen first. The officer on duty who answered the phone choked up. The policemen who were on duty in the Gangsha County Police Station knew that the bodies of the 2 policemen had not returned yet. They told their colleagues on duty to inform them when their brothers returned so that they could rush back to see their brothers. The Gangsha County Police Station was filled with grief, and so was the scene of the car accident. The 3 policemen and 3 traffic policemen who had been stationed in Lari Village for many years were the first to arrive. They already knew that their brothers had died on the way here, but they didn't have time to visit them before they threw themselves into the rescue. Xia Jinyuan suggested that the enthusiastic drivers and passengers who had participated in the rescue could leave. Hence, a traffic policeman directed the parked cars to leave first. "Look, they're saluting us." The drivers suddenly saw the two young officers who had sent them off standing by the side of the road from the rearview mirror. They were saluting them and sending them off. For a moment, he felt touched and proud. They were the soldiers who would definitely be the first to step forward to protect the people in times of danger. As they left, they didn't know that two policemen were lying quietly in a commercial car parked by the side of the road. They could no longer open their eyes to look at the blue sky and clear water. As for the felon who was killed, other than the traffic policeman who directed the car to leave, no one else took a second look at him. With their combined efforts, they used a jack to pry open the deformed car door. Wang Qian successfully rescued her. The ambulance had not arrived yet, so they had to rely on Yi Qian and Xia Jinyuan to do a simple check and treatment. Fortunately, Wang Qian did not suffer from any internal injuries. His legs were fractured, but the extent of the fracture was unclear. His arm was dislocated. After Yi Qian checked that there were no fractures, he set it back. His technique was neat, and the unconscious Wang Qian did not feel anything. They didn't wait for the ambulance to arrive. After confirming that the ambulance had already left West Lucky City and that Wang Qian's life wasn't in danger, they carried Wang Qian to the military jeep while Tian Tian was carried to the police car that came to rescue them. A police officer took care of her as they rushed to West Lucky City. Before they left, Yi Qian, Xia Jinyuan, and two other policemen who had left earlier came to the MPV and saluted the two policemen who had sacrificed themselves. The heroes of the people are immortal. Half an hour later, Wang Qian, who had suffered a heavy blow to his head, began to moan softly. Yi Qian, who was taking care of him, was the first to notice this and gently woke him up. At this point, all 4 hostages had been successfully rescued. None of them died, and the fugitive was successfully shot dead. Evil could never prevail over good. Chapter 5064. Yi Jian and Xia Jinyuan, who still had a mission, could not escort the 2 sacrificed policemen back to their hometown, Gansha County. They could only give a solemn military salute to bid farewell to the eternal heroes of the people. Police Ping Qo and Duo Ji drove the MPV again and rushed back to Gangsha County with their brothers. The body of the criminal Gong'an Ningbu was transported back to Gangsha County along with a murder weapon. He was from Gangsha County. Even if he was killed, his trial still had to be carried out. There were 2 traffic police cars in front, escorting them. Sirens blared all the way, opening the way for the returning heroes. 4 cars, divided into 2 groups, went in opposite directions. One side was life, the other side was death. The 4 rescued hostages would be bathed in the warmth of the sun the next day, but the dead heroes would be in eternal rest, accompanied by the dark land. Xia Jinyuan drove, while Yi Qian took care of the unconscious Wang Qian. Their hearts were heavy. The 2 of them were silent and didn't speak much along the way. After making a big turn, Yi Jian looked back at the back of the car and saw that the car behind her had disappeared. The heaviness that weighed down on her chest made her unable to breathe. Even her breathing felt sluggish. She had faced countless sacrifices head-on. Now that she was faced with death again, she still couldn't accept it. Sadness, anger, heaviness. It was like a mountain was pressing down on her, so heavy that she couldn't even straighten her back. Exhaling a breath of air, Yi Jian asked Xia Jinyuan, who was driving, in a low voice, "Captain Xia, is it common for policemen at the grassroots level to sacrifice themselves?" "I can't say often, but wherever they are, there will be sacrifices. There's no way to completely avoid it. We can only try to minimize it. Just like us, sacrifices can't be avoided. We can only reduce the sacrifice rate." Xia Jinyuan also gently exhaled. There was a faint haze in his dark eyes. "Yi Qian, study hard after you go to the airborne unit. Learn real skills. In the future, they will be your life-saving shield when you're in danger. They'll help you go out and return safely." Yi Jian replied softly. She lowered her eyelids to hide the shadows in the depths of her eyes. It was time for her to work hard on her skills. In the future, she must work harder than she did now. Time was precious, and every minute of their time was an inch of their lives. Wasting an inch of time was equivalent to wasting their own lives. After a few words, the two of them fell silent again. Xia Jinyuan drove, seriously, while Yi Qian carefully took care of Wang Qian, who was still unconscious. The two of them had faced the topic of sacrifice countless times. They both knew that sacrifice was inevitable, and there was no need to talk about it over and over again. They were silent and faced with it together. After driving for about 20 kilometers, Yi Qian frowned when he saw the unconscious Wang Qian. His eyes were still closed, and the expression on his face was first painful, then horrified. Yi Qian gently pressed Wang Qian's shoulder, who was about to wake up. His voice was soft and gentle. "Wang Qian, you have some minor injuries. Don't struggle. We're going to the hospital now." Wang Qian didn't open his eyes immediately. Instead, he struggled. He seemed to be having a bad dream. His limbs were slightly twitching, and his brows were furrowed tightly. The horror on his face deepened. "Wang Qian, you're saved now. The criminals who kidnapped you have been arrested by the police. You see, Tian and Cayenne are all fine. You're fine too. You don't have to be afraid anymore." Chapter 5065. Perhaps Yi Qian's voice had an effect, but Wang Qian, who had been struggling in pain, gasped for air and opened his eyes. He wasn't like Yu Si, who had been scared out of her wits. His body felt like it had been run over by a car, but the pain and fear in his heart made him keep his eyes wide open. He stared at the unfamiliar woman's face that had appeared in his line of sight. Then, he reflexively tried to get up. "You shouldn't move around now. Lie down." Yi Qian, whose hand had never left his shoulder, smiled and said, "We're going to the hospital now. You can only move after the doctor has examined you. Also, you're fine now. You, Cayenne, Yu Si, and Tian are all fine." Wang Qian blinked his eyes. Just as he was about to say something, he choked on his breath and coughed violently for a while. Yi Qian's expression changed slightly when he saw this. He asked Wang Qian in a low voice, "Do you feel chest pain? Do you feel dizzy? Do you feel like vomiting?" Wang Qian, who couldn't speak due to his choking, raised his wrist slightly and waved his hand to show that he didn't feel anything other than pain. "Damn it, it hurts so much. Am I going to be crippled?" He coughed uncomfortably and leaned his shoulder to one side. He coughed until his breathing calmed down, then slowly laid back down. "Damn it, I'm finally saved." Lying down, Wang Qian, who was in so much pain that his fingers were twitching, opened his mouth in a very sociable manner. The moment he opened his mouth, he seemed to have something in his mouth. His expression stiffened and changed again. His tongue moved nimbly in his mouth, and a hard little thing made his stiff cheeks twitch fiercely. Damn it! Tooth! It was definitely a tooth. Half of his tooth was broken. Wang Qian's expression changed dramatically. He closed his eyes in pain. Half of his tooth was broken. How the hell was he going to face others in the future? Yi Qian was frightened by his constantly changing expression. He hurriedly asked, "Are you feeling unwell? If you feel unwell, you must tell me immediately. When you were unconscious, we only gave you a simple checkup. We couldn't confirm if there were any other problems with your body." "No, I bit my own broken tooth." Wang Qian's voice was very weak as he replied, while gasping for air. He then turned his head and spat out the broken tooth. Yi Qian lowered his head and saw the half-tooth. A smile appeared in his eyes. Wang Qian, who had spat out his broken teeth, let out a long sigh. After taking a deep breath, he felt that he had truly come back to life. Wang Qian looked at the unfamiliar girl who was looking at him with concern. She was very young, probably about the same age as him. Wang Qian was in so much pain that he wanted to faint again. He was still unconscious and did not know who had saved him. In addition, Yi Qian had taken off his camouflage jacket and covered the body of the deceased officer. Now, he was only wearing a dark green thermal loose-fitting jacket. Wang Qianjin could not tell that the person who had saved him was a soldier. After thanking him, Wang Qian took the initiative to ask about the kidnappers and whether they had been caught by the police. Yi Qian was relieved that he still had the energy to talk to her. She smiled and answered his questions one by one. It's all settled. The kidnappers have been taken away by the police. They won't be able to commit any more crimes in the future. Hearing this, Wang Qian felt as if he had vented his anger. He almost clapped his hands in celebration. Xia Jinyuan did not speak. As he listened to the young man's words, his tensed, handsome face relaxed a lot. As long as he was fine, everything was easy to handle. Chapter 5066. When they were halfway there, the Pioneer Battalion contacted Xia Jinyuan through satellite communication. Wang Qian, who was lying on the ground, could tell that something was wrong. Please reply if you copy. Report complete. Why did it sound like a military TV? Entering section 3067 of the country, 137 kilometers away from the two vehicles. Over. Copy. Please drive carefully and ensure the safety of the injured. Copy. Xia Jinyuan replied. Wang Qian, who was talking to Yi Qian from time to time, and even asked Yi Qian to feed him water, felt a little excited. He stared at Yi Qian, suppressed the excitement in his voice and eyes, and asked, are you guys soldiers? Am I in a military vehicle right now? Yes, we are in the military jeep, Yi Qian replied with a smile. Yi Jian replied with a smile. Every time she saw the trust in the eyes of the people she was protecting, Yi Jian could not help but feel proud. When Wang Qian heard this, it was as if he had won the lottery. He was so excited that he forgot about his injury. He raised his hand and reached into his pocket. As soon as he raised his arm, he cried out in pain. A dull pain came from the bones in his right arm. Yi Qian pressed on his shoulder and sighed. I just told you not to move around. You can tell me what you were looking for. Hey, I want to get an autograph from you guys. This is the first time I've met a soldier. As a result, Wang Qian, who knew that Yi Jian and Xia Jinyuan were both soldiers, started to become talkative. He was even more talkative than Kai Yen. Even Xia Jinyuan, who was driving, had a headache from listening to him, not to mention Yi Jian. Wang Qian only stopped talking when they met up with the ambulance from West Thriving City. Soon, Wang Qian and Tian were put on stretchers. The medical staff quickly checked their injuries. When Wang Qian was carried out of the car, he saw Xia Jinyuan standing by the car door. Even though it was just a quick glance, he immediately said, Damn, he's even more handsome than me. On the other side, Kai Yin and Yusi got out of car. As there were not enough cars, the two of them managed to hail a car that happened to be heading back to West Lucky City. The police officer who was protecting the two of them thanked the driver of the car. The two of them did not wait for the paramedics to arrive and ran straight to the two ambulances parked in front of them. They wanted to know how their good friends Wang Qian and Tian were doing. Tian was asleep. She didn't even wake up when she was carried to the ambulance. Naturally, it wasn't good to wake her up. Wang Qian, who had been chatting all the way, did not sleep. He was in so much pain that the first thing he asked the medical staff was, Doctor, can you give me 2 painkillers? At this moment, a nurse was giving him a 4 drip and a medical staff was checking his body. Kai Yin and Yusi's appearance made Wang Qian so happy that he wanted to sit up, but he was stopped by the medical staff. Yusi, who was pushed out of the car by Gong'an Ningbo and injured, could now run and jump. She even punched Kai Yin in front of the police officers in the car and told the police what happened. She wanted the police to teach Kai Yin a lesson, but in the end, the two of them were scolded together. Their heads were lowered like little chicks, and they didn't even dare to breathe. When the two medical staff saw that the two of them could jump and jump, they smiled at the police officers who ran over and said, One look, and we know that they're fine. They don't even need to go to the hospital. The police officers knew that the two of them were fine when they were in the car, but they were still worried. We still need to go and take a look. Don't worry, she was scared out of her wits just now. They were also happy. Today was too sad, but at least the hostages were safe and sound. They felt a little comforted. Chapter 5067. Yusi was a little embarrassed. I was scared before, but now I'm okay. I'm fine. Uncle Policeman, I still want to thank the 2 soldiers of the People's Liberation Army who saved me. Can I go over now? You want to see handsome soldiers, right? Kaiyan joked in a low voice. You see raised her foot and kicked him sideways. She warned, shut up. Wang Qian, who was receiving infusion, dragged his sick body to join the chat. He is indeed very handsome. I was lying down before and didn't know there was such a handsome soldier driving. Huh, ouch, it hurts. Before he could finish the word hurts, he wanted to continue speaking with a pale face. The nurse who gave him the injection smiled and said, It's good to be young. All the bones in your legs are broken, and there's a hole in the back of your head. You can still talk and laugh. I know what you want to say. Before you woke up, I talked to the soldier for a long time. Let me tell you, that beautiful female soldier is only 22 years old. She's the same age as me. She's holding. Kaiyan, if you don't go over, your savior will leave. The policeman who escorted the two interrupted Kaiyan's words. Kaiyan, who was reminded, swallowed the words that he almost blurted out in time. He scratched the back of his head in embarrassment. In a moment of joy, he almost forgot that he couldn't say that he saw the beautiful female soldier shoot. The medical staff and the police all smiled kindly. Seeing that Kaiyan stopped talking in time, the policeman smiled and said, Don't talk anymore. Go. Otherwise, they'll leave. You should thank the soldiers who saved you. If it weren't for the two of them, you really wouldn't know which corner of the mountain you would be in now. Go and thank them properly. In the future, don't do things that you think are cool, but are actually very stupid. Sure. I promise to be a well-behaved person in the future. Kaiyan nodded repeatedly. He was scolded by the policeman in the car like a grandson who didn't dare to talk back. He would definitely be well-behaved in the future. He didn't want to be scolded by the policeman a second time. You see, who simply wanted to thank her savior, saw that he was still dawdling. She simply dragged Kaiyan and turned to walk to the back. The only military jeep was parked at the back. If they walked further back, they would definitely find someone. Yi Jian and Xia Jinyuan, who had finished moving the injured, were communicating with the two Shiji City police officers who had come to their aid. They told the two police officers in detail about how they had met each other, where Yi Jian had found the dead police officers, and so on and so forth about the hostage rescue operation. The two police officers also wanted to invite the soldiers who had contributed greatly to the rescue of the hostages and the killing of the criminals back to Shiji City, but they were all rejected. I'm sorry, I still have a mission, so I can only cooperate up to this point. If there's anything else, you can contact me before the day after tomorrow. Xia Jinyuan gave him his mobile phone number and explained, I will be returning to the army the day after tomorrow. According to the relevant regulations of the Army, all mobile electronic devices have to be handed over. Then, do you have the contact information in the military? A policeman who was taking notes seriously looked up and asked, The main thing is that we may need to contact you later. Xia Jinyuan said, I'm sorry, if you still need my cooperation in the future, you can leave a message. I will contact you after I turn on my phone. The policeman who asked the question looked at Xia Jinyuan and seemed to understand something. He then looked at Yi Qian. Yi Qian shook his head and said, I'm sorry, I'm in the same army as him. The two policemen who asked the question laughed and closed their notebooks. They reached out their hands and thanked him again. Chapter 5068. The older policeman said solemnly, I'm very grateful for your cooperation. Without your cooperation in rescuing the hostages and killing the criminals, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Since you still have a mission to complete, we won't take up any more of your time. Thank you again. Xia Jinyuan shook their hands and said politely, This is what we should do. Thank you for your hard work. He glanced at the two figures in front of the jeep and said, There are people looking for you in front. We won't disturb you any further. His voice was not loud, but the two people could hear him clearly. They quickly ran over and stopped. Without saying a word, they bowed 90 degrees to Xia Jinyuan and Yi Qian. The older policeman saw this and smiled. Not bad. You came here to thank your saviors. You too, don't do stupid things in the future. Many people get into trouble because of their stupidity and lose their lives. I hope you too learn from your mistakes and don't play with your lives. Do you understand? The two people knew that the policeman was doing this for their own good. They nodded obediently and promised solemnly. Kai-yin said, "We understand. We understand. We won't dare to do it again." "Thank you, Mr. Policeman." "Thank you, brother and sister soldier." Yusi bowed 90 degrees again. Her eyes were red, and she sniffed. She bent down for a long time and did not get up. "Thank you, Mr. Policeman." "Thank you, brother and sister soldier." Yi Qian smiled and helped her up. "You're welcome. You were frightened too. Don't think too much about it when you go back. It's over now. Don't take it to heart. No matter how arrogant the criminals are, they can't escape the punishment of the law. You two have to protect and take care of yourselves at all times. After all, the word criminal will not be written on the criminals' faces." Yusi was a girl, so Yi Jian was the most suitable person to console her. In the face of such gentle consolation, Yusi's tears fell in streams. In the end, when she thanked the soldier who was more handsome than a celebrity, she was already speechless. Later on, Yusi said regretfully to Tian Tian, who had just been discharged from the hospital, "Tian Tian, what I regret the most now is that I didn't ask for that beautiful soldier's phone number. She's beautiful and gentle. I really like her." Tian Tian, who was discharged from the hospital, thought of a blurry male face. She also had the biggest regret. That was... She pursed her lips and sighed. "At least you know who saved us. As for me, I didn't even see what they looked like. Big loss, big loss, big loss." A handsome and beautiful combination, completely surpassing male and female celebrities. "Stop talking. The more I talk about it, the more regretful I feel." "Haha, don't regret it. Maybe you'll have another chance in the future. I'll tell you the next time I see them. I hope there's still a chance." Tian Tian sighed. Yusi thought for a moment before replying. "There will definitely be a chance. After all, we are still alive, aren't we?" Yes, there must be a chance. As long as he was alive, there would be a chance. It had already been a month, but the two policemen who had sacrificed themselves would never have the chance. The sun was shining brightly outside. The 4 seasons of spring had arrived. The mountains were covered in greenery, and it was the time when the peach blossoms in the mountain temple were shining brightly. It was good to be alive. As long as one was alive, one could see the sun, see the flowers bloom and wilt, see the 4 seasons change. As long as one was alive, one could see the flowers of spring, the sun of summer, the fruits of autumn, and the snow of winter. It was really good to be alive. Yi Qian, who had jumped down from a height of 3,000 meters with an umbrella, felt the wind whistling in her ears. She felt the pressure on her chest and felt her pulse racing. When the snow-white umbrella opened with a bang, she pulled on the rope and landed in the designated area. Now, she had become a paratrooper in the airborne department. Chapter 5069. After leaving the Northwest, Yi Qian did not rest at all. He did not even know the results of the female soldier assessment before he headed to a special Air Force training base. When the two of them arrived at the military base in the evening, Xia Jinyuan had just parked the car. Before he could hand over the car keys, 2 Air Force soldiers walked out of the military base. When they saw Yi Qian, they strode quickly towards Yi Qian as if they were equipped with wind and fire wheels. Xia Jinyuan, who was still holding the car keys in his hand, revealed a rare look of surprise on his handsome face. Then, he turned his head and said to Yi Qian, who got out of the car and closed the door, "Why are you so fast?" Yi Qian, who had closed the car door, was equally confused when he saw the 2 soldiers striding towards him in the Air Force's blue sky camouflage uniform. That's right, why are they so fast? The 2 Air Force soldiers came over and saluted the 2 of them. One of them, who had a round face and was full of energy, stood up straight and introduced himself seriously. Then, he told Yi Qian that they would be leaving in an hour by helicopter. They would be leaving in an hour. In other words, Yi Qian and Xia Jinyuan would only be together for an hour. The parting was a little sudden. Even though the 2 of them were prepared, they were still caught off guard and were reluctant to part. Fortunately, the 2 of them were calm and collected, so no one noticed anything amiss. Xia Jinyuan handed the car keys to the soldier at the military base and took Yi Qian for a walk around the military base. The military base they arrived at was located in a small county. The county was located at the bottom of a group of rolling, gray, snow-capped mountains. Just by looking up, one could see the snow-capped peaks of the mountains. Although it was already spring, the temperature in the county was still a little low. One could even smell the cold smell of snow in the air. This was a very, very small county. It took 20 minutes to drive from the east to the west of the county. The two of them left the military depot and walked around nearby. Xia Jinyuan even brought Yi Qian to drink a bowl of mutton soup. Seeing that it was about time, he sent Yi Qian back to the military depot. They were already used to parting. After walking around, the sadness brought by the sudden separation was lessened. When Yi Qian left, Xia Jinyuan stood at the entrance of the military depot. He stood tall and straight, and there was an elegant smile on his face as he watched his lover leave. In the past, it was Yi Qian who watched him leave. Now, it was Xia Jinyuan who watched Yi Qian leave. Only the two of them knew how it felt. The two of them parted ways in this small county. Xia Jinyuan returned to the head of the chicken on the map, while Yi Qian took a taxi to the tail of the chicken on the map. It was not far from the northwest. It was in the southwest of China and was known as the roof of the world. If there were no special reasons, it would be difficult for them to see each other again in the next 2 years. In addition, the two of them were in special units and could not contact the outside world at any time. If one of them had the time, the other might not have the time. In other words, they might not even have the time to call each other in the next 2 years. It might even be the longest time they had lost contact since they fell in love. The last time they lost contact for the longest time was when Xia Jinyuan was lurking around Cobra. Yi Qian had entered a place in the southwest that could not even be found on the map. She had 3 days to adapt, mainly to see if she could adapt to the highland climate. When Principal Chun and Uncle Jin were still alive, Yi Qian had undergone highland climate training. After Uncle Jin passed away, Principal Chun brought Yi Qian to the highland to complete the training. During the training, they met Xia Jinyuan and helped Xia Jinyuan eliminate a foreign mercenary that had entered the country. Chapter 5070. Because it involved the operation of the Snowfield Brigade, the training was classified as a top military secret. Now, besides Commander-in-Chief Xia, Major General Yang, and Xia Jinyuan, no one else knew. Even if Yi Qian was seconded to a certain airborne unit, he didn't disclose it. All his personal information was only known to the leaders of the airborne unit. For example, Captain Lei knew what training Yi Qian had undergone and how many military exploits he had made, but other than that, he didn't know anything. As for the military exploits he had received, Captain Lei only knew that Yi Qian had received 3 third-class exploits and 2 second-class exploits, but he didn't know the specific mission he had received. Even if they didn't know the specific reason, it was enough to shock Captain Lei and the other leaders. He was also a military school student who had received a total of 5 military exploits while still in school. One of the photos was released at last year's graduation ceremony, before he was directly awarded the rank of captain. There were gunshot wounds, knife wounds, scratches, punctures, abrasions, bumps, bruises, and all sorts of other injuries. When Captain Lei and the other leaders saw the photo, they all felt a faint pain in their bodies. And at that time, how much pain must Yi Qian have been in when he was injured? How much perseverance must he have had to endure the pain until he came back alive? After seeing the photo, the other leaders who still had some complaints about the female Army Special Forces soldier didn't say anything anymore. When Yi Qian arrived, several instructors in charge of the female airborne military training came out to greet him personally to show that they valued him. During the 3-day observation period, Division Commander Sun avoided Captain Lei and the others and secretly chatted with Yi Qian for nearly 2 hours. After they finished chatting and sent off Division Commander Sun, Yi Qian rubbed his forehead for a while, asking her to hide her strength and then slowly attack the female airborne soldiers. Yi Qian felt that this was a very difficult problem to solve. At the same time, he also felt that Division Commander Sun thought too highly of her. She was an Army Special Forces soldier who ran from the Army to the airborne unit to study. Did she still need to hide her strength and then slowly attack the carefully selected female airborne soldiers? Was it possible? It was simply impossible. Did she still need to hide her strength? She was just a rookie in the airborne unit. Why would she need to hide her strength? Don't be a burden. 3 days later, Yi Qian, who was dressed in army camouflage, appeared among the 14 female soldiers who were dressed in Air Force blue sky camouflage. It was very abrupt, eye-catching, and quite repulsive. Yi Qian, who had been repelled, was about to jump down from a high altitude. The most nervous one was not her, but Captain Lei, who was observing her from the ground, as well as a few instructors in charge of the training of female paratroopers. Don't be nervous, don't be nervous. Deep breaths, deep breaths. Who doesn't have a first time? After the first time, the second time will be fine. Don't be nervous. A game for the brave, a month's worth of sweat. If he didn't clear the trial, death would be his only fate. An Air Force captain standing behind Captain Lei looked up at the white small umbrellas in the sky, whispering in his mouth and silently saying in his heart. Captain Lei, who was so nervous that he almost broke his high-power binoculars, took a deep breath and locked onto Yi Qian, who was in the 10th jump. At this moment, pure white umbrellas bloomed in the sky. The umbrellas that belonged to Yi Qian had yet to appear. Nervous. He was really nervous at this moment. He was probably no less nervous than Yi Qian, who had just completed his jump. No, it should be said that all the officers and soldiers of the ground team were very nervous, especially Yi Qian, who was jumping for the first time. In order to allow Yi Qian to successfully complete the first jump and successfully overcome the nervousness, obstacles, and fear of the first jump, after several days of weather observation, they decided to complete the jump on this sunny day with 100% high-altitude visibility. Chapter 5071. After a month of intense training, Yi Qian was going to make her first jump. Captain Lei even accompanied her before she set off, constantly cheering her on. Although it looked like she didn't need it. As the captain, he had an obligation to take care of every soldier. Especially for Yi Qian's first skydiving. He had to keep a close eye on her and solve any problems immediately. The 9 female soldiers in front of her carried their parachutes and jumped one after another. There was no hesitation in the middle. They jumped as soon as they said they would. The process was very familiar and comfortable. When they arrived at Yi Qian, the connection between the air and the ground instantly became tense. As Yi Qian carried her parachute and waited to jump, the instructor in the cabin kept encouraging Yi Qian, telling her to relax, not to be nervous, and to face the situation with her usual training mentality. There would be no problems. Yi Qian, who was mentally prepared, nodded repeatedly to show that she understood. She was clear that she was fine now, but, well, no one thought that she was fine now, including the 5 female soldiers who hadn't jumped yet. They all thought that she was very nervous now. Odd numbers pull left, even numbers pull right. Avoid your neighbors. Number 10. Do you know what number you are? Even numbers. Remember, you are an even number. Pull right. The instructor tightened the safety belt on Yi Qian's shoulder and reminded her again. Yi Qian replied with an okay hand gesture, indicating that she was fine. Her calmness made the instructor feel slightly more at ease. Yi Qian, who was thought to be very nervous, took a step forward. With a jump, Yi Qian completed her first jump since joining the airborne forces a month ago. The wind whistled past her ears, and the scenery of the highlands entered her eyes. The blue sky and magnificent mountains spread out like a painting, and she was just a grain in the painting. As her body rapidly descended, the calm and composed Yi Qian opened her parachute. The white parachute swelled with the wind and turned into a white cloud that floated towards the ground. Number 10 has successfully completed the first jump. The parachute bag has been successfully opened. Prepare to enter the landing area. Ground team, get ready. The instructor in the cabin contacted the ground and completed the guidance link between the situation in the air and the ground. Captain Lei, whose sight was locked onto Yi Qian's white umbrella through high-powered binoculars, replied calmly, "Roger that. The ground team is ready to receive them." 11 jumps completed. 12 jumps completed. 15 jumps complete. Air Team, return. Ground Team, received. Air Team, please return to the landing point. Ground Team, prepare to attack. Captain Lei, who had never left his binoculars, calmly issued the next order. The 15 female soldiers successfully completed their first parachute jump from the cabin to the Airborne Special Training Team. Now, it was time for them to land smoothly. Their formation was a special formation. Therefore, the problems they faced were not ordinary problems. Even if they completed the first jump, Captain Lei also incorporated actual combat according to the special formation. In actual combat, paratroopers suffered the most casualties from the moment they left the plane to the moment they landed. How to make paratroopers land quickly and safely had always been a problem that every country had been researching. For this airborne landing, Captain Lei incorporated actual combat to see the reactions of the female soldiers. For safety reasons, Captain Lei did not attack the female soldiers who were still floating in the air. Instead, he waited for all 15 female soldiers to land before starting. There was no other way. Captain Lei had to weigh his options before he could be ruthless. He needed to ensure that no female soldier was sacrificed during the entire training process. Chapter 5072. It was much harder to select female paratroopers than female Special Forces soldiers. There were very few female soldiers in the Air Force, and it was even more difficult to select female soldiers who were excellent in all aspects. Only 14 female soldiers were selected from the entire Air Division. Including Yi Qian, who was seconded from the Army, there were a total of 15 female soldiers. They could barely make up 2 ordinary classes. Before that, the division commander wanted to make up 2 enhanced classes. Ordinary classes were barely enough. Enhanced classes were out of the question. They would have to wait and see if it was possible in the future. Captain Lei didn't dare to imagine the consequences if a female soldier was accidentally sacrificed during the training. Among the 15 female soldiers, only Yi Jian had not undergone systematic airborne training and had no prior airborne experience. As for the other 14 female soldiers, 2 of them had been squad leaders of the airborne troops. Their individual abilities were quite strong, and they were also the 2 female soldiers with the strongest comprehensive ability among the 15 female soldiers. Yi Qian, who was from the Army, appeared in the Army's camouflage among the 14 female soldiers in the Air Force's blue sky camouflage. She was ostracized on the first day. Captain Lei was not coordinated, so it was normal to be ostracized. You would be a burden to the class, and it was very likely that you would tarnish the reputation of the team. It was very likely that your teammates would be punished. Especially since Yi Qian was from the Army, it was normal to be ostracized. To be accepted by the Air Force, Yi Qian had to rely on himself. Only by catching up to the pace of the female soldiers would he be accepted. Whether the first jump could be successfully completed was the most important jump for Yi Qian. If she failed, the ostracization would be even more serious. The Air Division would also reconsider whether Yi Qian could continue the training. Captain Lei didn't know that Division Commander Kong had secretly looked for Yi Qian and asked Yi Qian to train in a low-key manner after joining the team. He wanted the female paratroopers to think that Yi Qian would be a burden from the first day. Yi Qian, who was preparing to descend, pulled the rope of her parachute and adjusted it according to the wind direction. She kept a safe distance to the left and right so that she could successfully complete the descent. She didn't focus on how to descend. Instead, she observed the ground calmly as she descended. The female Air Force who had already landed were quickly packing up their parachutes. They did not know that the ground had already arranged for an actual attack. The first female soldier to jump down was a second lieutenant of the Air Force. She was also the former squad leader of the male airborne troops. She entered the airborne troops at the age of 18 and was 23 years old this year. She had made many contributions and was promoted to sergeant. She was the first to pack up her parachute. She quickly helped the second female soldier pack up her parachute and said in a low voice, "Army is the 10th jump. Let's confirm her approximate location and go over to help her pack up her parachute." "I'm not going," The second female soldier who completed her descent refused without hesitation. We've been cooperating with her all this time. Now that we're in the first jump, do we still need to cooperate? The Army should stay in the Army. Why did they come to our airborne troops? They're just dragging us down. Squad leader, we should let her know the difficulties and retreat as soon as possible. Otherwise, it'll be too late to say anything when something happens. The second lieutenant, who used to be the squad leader of the male squad and was now the squad leader of the female squad, sighed softly. There must be a reason for her to come to our squad. She usually trains very hard. Although she can't cooperate with us in some aspects, she's still from the Army after all. She hasn't received any training from the airborne troops. It's already amazing that she can complete the first jump in a month. Think about it. How long did it take for you to complete the first jump after you joined the Army? The fastest was 3 months. As for her, she started her first jump a month later. In the future, don't always say that she's dragging us down in front of her. Leave her some face. Chapter 5073. The class leader's words didn't have any effect. If Yi Qian was in the same military as them, they wouldn't reject him at all. If an individual's ability was a burden to the class, they wouldn't forget to help when they were targeted. But Yi Qian was in the Army, so even if he helped them, it wouldn't affect them much. Since they wouldn't be working together in the future, they should leave while they still had a chance. If they really became a martyr, the ones who would suffer the most would be her family. The female soldier who had already packed her things didn't agree with the class leader and calmly retorted, "Is face more important than life? She should go back to where she belongs. All the soldiers here are worried about her safety. Class leader, she's not in the same military as us." The female soldier who completed the second jump came from the 17th Air Division, formerly known as the Air Force's 1st Brigade. The 1st Division commander was Commander Wang, who was also one of the first elite members of China's airborne troops in the 1950s. The 17th Air Division had countless achievements and was one of the best elite divisions. The female soldiers from the 17th Air Division were also outstanding among the male airborne soldiers. The 17th Air Division's tradition was survival of the fittest, so those who didn't meet the requirements were directly eliminated. Therefore, this female soldier believed that Yi Qian, who came from the Army, was a member who needed to be eliminated, so there was no need to waste too much energy. It wasn't easy to train a paratrooper, so she hoped that the one who joined the team was a real paratrooper. One had to know that they were not going to be ordinary paratroopers who would retire after 2 years of service. Instead, there would be special scouts of the paratroopers, special forces of the Air Force. As a member of the Army, Yi Qian shouldn't take up a spot. After she finished speaking, the female soldier pursed her lips and her voice became a bit more serious. Her arrival made the comrades who originally had the chance to stay leave. She was the one who first squeezed out the comrades who should be training with us. The female soldier was talking about the 2 female soldiers who were previously observed, but because they couldn't adapt to the plateau climate, they returned to their original unit. One of the female soldiers was also from the 17th Air Division. The class leader also thought of this, and her face was a bit cold. She took a deep breath and tried to persuade the female soldier while running. "This isn't a decision we can influence, nor is it a decision Yi Qian can influence. Moreover, they have no way to adapt to the climate of the plateau. Forcing them to stay will not do them any good. They can't adapt to the highland climate. Regardless of whether Yi Qian is here or not, they can't stay here." The class leader's tone gradually became serious. "You can have a problem with Yi Qian dragging our class down, but you absolutely can't target her because the female soldiers of the 17th Air Force Division returned to their original unit. She's only a private, so she can't make decisions for the higher-ups. You're not allowed to say such things in the future. If you continue to target Yi Qian unfairly, I will make you reflect on yourself. Do you hear me?" When the class leader realized that the female soldier was targeting Yi Qian, other than the fact that Yi Qian was a burden in the Army, there was also a female soldier from the 17th Air Force Division who couldn't adapt to the climate in the Highlands. She left the Highlands 3 days after Yi Qian arrived. The class leader didn't let her off and immediately gave her a warning. The squad leader was a little angry. Although the female soldier still had complaints in her heart, she did not dare to continue. She bit her lower lip and nodded. Understood. Louder. Understood. The running female soldier replied loudly. Chapter 5074. The third female soldier who successfully landed didn't hear the first half of the sentence clearly. She only heard the words, understood, so she quickly put away her parachute and asked the second female soldier, "What did you talk about with the class leader? What did you understand?" "Just," the female soldier said one word, then swallowed the rest of her words. Her expression was a bit gloomy as she replied faintly, "Nothing. We were just talking about how we're going to get out of here." The third female soldier who successfully landed clearly didn't believe her. She looked at the female soldier with suspicion and said, "Oh," before quickly putting away her parachute. Because they were all the first to jump from the plateau, Captain Lay didn't jump to the landing point at 4,000 meters above sea level. Instead, she chose to jump to the lowest point on the plateau. Even though they were at a higher altitude and had a wider field of vision, they were surrounded by large and small rocks that rolled down from the snowy mountains. There was also a river in front of them that was about 5 meters wide. The river water was bone-chilling and was formed from snow. Soon, several female soldiers successfully landed, and the communication team reported the situation to the ground team. Did Yi Chien complete his landing? The ground team instructor's cold voice entered the female soldier's ears. "Please immediately confirm if Yi Chien completed his landing." "Yes, sir." After the female soldier finished answering, she immediately ran to the class leader. "Class leader, the ground team instructor wants us to immediately confirm if Yi Chien completed his landing." There were already 13 people gathered, and the class leader was currently cleaning up. When she heard this, the class leader's expression changed slightly, and her voice instantly tightened. "Did anyone see Yi Chien? Did anyone see Yi Chien?" "Reporting no." "Reporting no." "Reporting." Other than Yi Chien, Guo Chui from the 11th jump also didn't arrive. The two of them didn't arrive at the rendezvous point, and they successfully jumped one after the other. The class leader's expression was a bit anxious. "Quick, split up and look for the two of them." They jumped one after the other and didn't arrive at the rendezvous point immediately. The class leader was very worried about whether or not a special situation would occur when she wasn't paying attention. For example, 2 parachutes would be stuck together or the parachute rope would be hooked. Once a special situation occurred, if she wasn't able to deal with it calmly, the two of them would fall from a high altitude and their survival rate would be almost zero. Usually, these female paratroopers already had a problem with Yi Chien, who was part of the army. They ostracized him secretly and targeted him openly. Now that they heard that Yi Chien had not arrived yet, they only had one thought in their minds. If you try to be brave, something big will happen. Just as they were about to split up and search, a clear and cold voice, like the early morning breeze, came from behind the female soldiers. Reporting, Yi Chien has successfully landed. Reporting, Guo Chui has successfully landed. Hearing this, the female soldiers did not immediately turn their heads to look. They were in formation and needed to be instructed before they could make the next move. This was a discipline that had to be observed and followed at all times. "Everyone turn around." After the class leader gave the order, the 12 female soldiers who had finished forming up moved in unison and turned around with a sonorous force. Everyone's movements were done at the same time and were orderly as if they were one person. When they turned around, they saw the 2 people who were the slowest to arrive, who made everyone anxious, supporting each other. It was obvious that something had happened. The expressions of the 13 female soldiers, including the class leader, all changed. There were all kinds of expressions on their faces, but in the end, they still had a look of rejection. Chapter 5075. The class leader's expression was ugly as the 2 of them did not arrive at the assembly point in time to report for landing. Yi Chien could feel the repulsion from these gazes and sighed in his heart. In the past, she often heard that there would be repulsion between classes. It was common for cadets to experience a period of repulsion when they graduated from military school and were assigned to a company. Everyone came from different places and had different living habits, so there was bound to be a period of adjustment. For example, Captain Xia was ostracized and isolated when she first entered Shuiyu. She had already mentally prepared herself for this, but she still felt a little uncomfortable when she really encountered it. This was because she had never encountered any rejection before. She also understood why Division Commander Kong came talk to her and told her to be strong and not to return to the army just because she was wrong during training. He reminded her again and again before leaving. Although she was wronged, it depended on how she understood and accepted it. She was not a paratrooper to begin with. After she arrived, she encountered 2 female paratroopers who were still under observation. It was normal for the 13 female paratroopers in front of her, including the class leader, to have some opinions about her. Under the 13 gazes, Yi Qian and Guo Chui supported each other as they walked back to their group. When they got closer, the class leader did not immediately let them return to their group. She first glanced at Guo Chui and seemed to confirm something before her gaze fell on Yi Qian. Her gaze was already very cold. According to the plan, everyone had to arrive at the assembly point within 10 minutes of landing. Did the 2 of you arrive at the assembly point according to the plan? As a soldier, you don't even have the most basic concept of time. How did the Army teach the 2 of you? Please answer me loudly. The female paratroopers who also looked at Yi Qian became more serious. They could not let her stay in the paratroopers. She should go to the Army and not die in the paratroopers. Although the class leader used the word "the 2 of you" when she criticized them, Yi Qian knew that she was the only one. He asked Guo Chui, who had sprained her ankle, "Can you stand on your own?" "Yes." Guo Chui nodded when she heard that the class leader was only criticizing Yi Qian. Yi Qian let go of her hand, straightened his body, and lowered his chin. He did not give any explanation. "Please punish me." Being late was being late. There was no need for further explanation. Chile in the Army was not just a matter of being late to work and having his pay deducted. Being late in the Army could often affect the entire battle situation. It was not a small matter. The class leader thought that Yi Jian would have an explanation, but unexpectedly, Yi Jian directly asked him to punish her. The class leader's heart skipped a beat, and his face darkened even more. He glanced at Guo Chui, who had a restrained expression, and a faint darkness flashed across his eyes. Instead of asking Guo Chui, she continued to ask Yi Qian, "Do you think punishment will solve the problem? As a soldier, don't you know the importance of time?" Everyone arrived on time. Because of the 2 of you, all of us had to wait here. The situation on the battlefield is constantly changing. Everyone has their own responsibilities. The comrades who are charging at the front lines will lose their lives because of your tardiness. Yi Qian, this is the Airborne Division, not the Army. When paratroopers were on the battlefield, every second mattered. If you were late by 3 minutes and 46 seconds, it would be enough to drag out the entire battle. Furthermore, it would cause the comrades who were trapped in the encirclement to be sacrificed in order to find you. Can you bear this responsibility? As a soldier, can you still continue to wear this uniform? Chapter 5076. Of course, Yi Qian couldn't bear the responsibility. She knew the importance of time after completing multiple missions. Every time a class leader questioned her, she considered the bigger picture. Even if there was a reason, she couldn't explain it. Also, she felt like the class leader had other intentions by criticizing her alone. Reporting, "Class leader, I have something to say." Guo Chui, whose face was slightly pale, spoke up. The class leader's words were all directed at Yi Qian. Even though she normally rejected Yi Qian because he was in the Army, today wasn't Yi Qian's fault. The class leader's gaze finally fell on Guo Chui. She paused for a moment, then said, "Speak." The class leader already knew what was going on when Yi Qian gestured for Guo Chui to stand still. When she criticized the second landing female soldier, Lu Meiyue, she also criticized herself in her heart and made a deep self-reflection. If Yi Qian was able to stay in the airborne forces, then there must be a reason. As the class leader, It was her negligence to reject Yi Qian. She wasn't a female paratrooper. As long as she stayed in the paratroopers and was a member of her class, she had to abandon her personal prejudice and take good care of everyone in her class. As a class leader, even if she had some complaint about Yi Qian, she couldn't lead the way in rejecting Yi Qian. She would take care of what she needed to take care of, but whether or not Yi Qian was accepted by her comrades would depend on her own abilities. Class leader, Yi Qian was late because he was helping me. This time, it was all because of me. It had nothing to do with her. I was the one who caused her to be late. Please punish me. Guo Chui spoke softly at first. Then she spoke louder and louder. When I landed, one of my feet slipped and got stuck in a crack in the rock. When Yi Qian saw this, he immediately ran over to help me move the rock away. Moving the rock doesn't take that long. It's already been 4 minutes. A female soldier in the group said in a soft voice, but it was loud enough for everyone to hear. That's right. How many minutes does it take to move a rock? After Guo Chui heard this, she said loudly. The landing point was chosen incorrectly. The rock looked small, but most of it was buried deep underground. Yi Qian used his knife to dig out most of the rock before moving it away. With Guo Chui's explanation, the female soldiers didn't say anything else. In the highlands, many of the rocks looked like small bags, but they were buried deep underground, so it was impossible to tell how big they were. Guo Chui said, Class leader, Yi Qian didn't have any problems landing this time. It was because of me that was why she was late. Yi Qian's was Yi. Yez's Yi Jian said that I am her comrade in arms. On the battlefield, there are no cowards who only care about their own life and death and don't care about the life and death of their comrade in arms. Qian's. Qian's is a true comrade. Qian. Qian's. S punishment. S punishments. I accept any form of punishment. After a month in the paratroopers, there was finally a female soldier who spoke up for Yi Qian. Even if there was a reason behind it, at least it was a good sign, wasn't it? After Captain Lei of the ground team learned the details, he couldn't help laughing. This female soldier from the Special Forces from the Army was not bad. It had been a month. It was fine if she did not make a move, but once she made a move, it immediately changed people's impression of her. A true comrade in arms never leave each other at any time. Captain Lei read it carefully, and the smile on his face deepened. Chapter 5077. That's right, the people you trust the most on the battlefield are your comrades. With your most trusted comrades guarding the rear, don't worry. It should be even more exciting next. After a month, the male squad had yet to spar with Yi Qian. This time, they would have a good spar. After a good spar, the female soldiers who rejected her would be able to accept her faster. Captain Lei thought so, and it was indeed a very good idea. What a pity! Division Commander Kong temporarily prevented Yi Qian from directly attacking the female paratroopers. He was really worried that the female soldiers from the army would be too powerful and destroy the confidence of the female paratroopers. That would not be worth it. Captain Lei did not know that Division Commander Kong had chatted with Yi Qian, nor did he know about Division Commander Kong's instructions to Yi Qian. If he knew, he would not have made such arrangements. Assault team, get ready. Assault team, get ready. Female soldiers, gather and prepare to head to the designated area. All teams, focus on attacking Yi Qian from the female squad. All teams, focus on attacking Yi Qian from the female squad. In order to exchange blows with Yi Qian, Captain Lei directly ordered the male squad to focus on attacking Yi Qian. In the end, Yi Qian was sent to the battlefield early. Yi Qian, you are now dead. Find a place to rest. The squad leader straightened her crooked helmet and glanced around coldly. Fortunately, no female soldiers died and continued to advance. When she left, the squad leader's face was very ugly. Some of the female soldiers who passed by her snorted heavily and said, "You're a burden." Only then did they leave. "Stop talking nonsense. Let's go. Otherwise, you'll be the next one to be taken care of." Everyone reacted except for her. She was like a block of wood being taken care of by the male soldiers. Just looking at her makes me angry. She probably never received such training before. She didn't react in time. Don't talk too much. Can't you see that the squad leader's face is very bad? How can not be bad? We only took a few steps, and one of our squad was taken care of. Our morale is affected. The female soldiers, who had split up, spoke one after another. In the end, they all came to the same conclusion. Yi Qian from the army was really not suited to stay in the airborne division. He should leave quickly and not implicate them. She didn't expect that there would be a surprise attack midway. Yi Qian was taken care of by a male soldier before he even entered the battlefield. The cold-eyed squad leader didn't even have time to care about Yi Qian. She took the 13 female soldiers and rushed to the infiltration point. Yi Qian, who had died in battle, scooped up some water to wash his face. He hugged his gun and prepared to relax. A month of intensive training had really made her, an army soldier with zero foundation, suffer. It was even more difficult than the training in the Storm Commandos back then. Sure enough, there was no such thing as the hardest training, only harder training. Even if she had enough perseverance, Yi Jian still felt a little tired after 31 consecutive days of intense training without rest. Moreover, she had to train herself secretly from time to eat extra meals. It wasn't that it was very difficult. It was just that she had zero foundation. Division Commander Kong also hoped that she could surpass the female paratroopers as soon as possible. He also said that the Air Force headquarters had high hopes for her. This made her, who only wanted to learn the skills of the paratroopers, feel the pressure and the heavy responsibility. Under these two conditions, the hardships she had to put in were naturally much more than others. She had to crazily learn new skills and enjoy the fun of it. The hardships couldn't be described in a few words. Yi Qian let out a long sigh. She didn't need to suppress her true abilities now. She still had to continue working hard when facing a group of elites. She could have avoided the sneak attack on the ground, but she just couldn't avoid it. Chapter 5078. Division Commander Kong had asked her to hide it, even from Captain Lei. When the male soldiers launched a sneak attack, she immediately thought that the male soldier who launched the sneak attack was the Special Forces scout Xiao Tu, who had a problem with her in the Gobi Experimental Center. Since she wanted to hide it, she naturally couldn't avoid Xiao Tu. Yi Qian, who was basking in the sun, pulled his helmet down to shield his eyes from the direct sunlight. As the sunlight shone on him, Yi Qian yawned. A low laugh came from behind. Yi Qian, did you deliberately get killed by the male soldiers so that you could rest? Captain Lei, who had come looking, happened to see Yi Qian yawning. When he received the news that Yi Qian was killed in the first round, his first reaction was, "Impossible! There must be a mistake." After confirming that it was true, he couldn't help but come over to ask what was going on. In addition, Xiao Tu said that before he launched the sneak attack, Yi Qian discovered him before any of the female soldiers and even glanced at him. Captain Lei felt that he should talk to Yi Qian. How could a female Special Forces soldier from the army, the female sniper who calmly sniped on the plane a few months ago, be killed in the first round? There must be a problem. The male soldier who launched the sneak attack on Yi Qian, Xiao Tu, also felt that something was wrong. He dared to guarantee that before he launched the sneak attack, the sniper Yi Qian must have discovered him and even glanced at him, but she didn't react. Then, Captain Lei, who had been looking for her, carefully thought about Yi Qian's performance in the past month of training. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that there was a problem. The more he thought about it, the more uneasy he felt. When he saw Yi Qian leisurely basking in the sun, Captain Lei was even more certain of his guess. She didn't care at all that she was killed in advance, nor did she care how the female soldiers viewed her. There was a big problem. Could it be that she regretted it and didn't want to stay in the airborne force to train and wanted to return her old unit? How could that be? She said she would stay for 2 years. It's only been a month. How could she leave? Yi Qian, who had opened her eyes, quickly stood up and saluted Captain Lei. She was now only a private first class, so she had to salute the captain when she saw him. Yi Qian, let's not beat around the bush. I'll get straight to the point. Captain Lei returned the salute and asked directly, not giving Yiqian a chance to prepare. You're a very good sniper. Your information has already told me clearly. And just now, Little Head, who successfully launched a sneak attack on you, told me that you had clearly discovered him long ago and had absolutely enough time to dodge. So, why did Little Head successfully launch a sneak attack on you? I think we need to have a good talk about this. Facing the straightforward Captain Lei, Yi Qian felt that it was in line with the personality of a Special Forces scout. After thinking about it, she pushed Division Commander Kong forward. This question is not difficult, but it's not easy for me to answer. Captain Lei, you should ask Division Commander Kong. He should be able to give you an answer. Division Commander Kong? Did the Division Commander look for you alone? Captain Lei, who was very keen, suddenly grasped the key point and specifically told you something. Yi Qian smiled. You can ask Division Commander Kong. If he can answer, I'm sure he will. Deal. Then I'll ask Division Commander directly. Captain Lei knew that he wouldn't be able to get anything out of her, so he nodded very seriously. There must be something wrong. I have to ask clearly. Yes, there was something wrong. She was also helpless. The feeling of being ostracized by the female soldiers was really uncomfortable. Yi Qian, who was far away in the highlands, didn't feel very good. Far away in the capital, old Master Fu, who was listening to Mrs. Qin's idle chat, also felt very uncomfortable. Chapter 5079. Old Master Fu was at home at the moment. Other than Uncle Fu, who had been taking care of Old Master Fu, there was also his grandson, Li Jingyan, who had returned from a visit 2 days ago. When Mrs. Qin came, Old Master Fu could tell that she had something to say to him alone. So he sent Li Jingyan, who only came back once every 2 years, to the kitchen to help Uncle Fu. He asked Mrs. Qin to talk in the tea room. Old Master Fu had always treated the younger generation of the Qin family as his own and was usually willing to help them out if they had any problems. The Qin family was kind and did not bother Old Master Fu. Today, when Mrs. Qin came, Old Master Fu took it seriously. Old Master Fu would often visit the Qin family, which was closest to his home. In addition, the two families had been friends for decades, so the elders of the two families did not treat each other as outsiders. Although they were not related by blood, they were more like family. Especially when Yi Qian did not return to the Fu family. The two brothers of the Qin family took turns to take care of Old Master Fu. Every time they went to Dengue Garden to visit, the two elders of the Qin family would definitely visit Old Master Fu. Although there was always an unfilial son in the first generation of the Qin family, they were generally decent. They did not commit crimes like murder and arson, but they loved women. However, when it came to Old Master Fu, even the illegitimate son of the Qin family, Qin Yi, was respectful to Old Master Fu and did not dare to act rashly. Therefore, Old Master Fu really treated the younger generation of the Qin family as his own and doted on them, especially Qin Xiu, who he had watched grow up. Even if Mrs. Qin was Qin Xiu's mother, Old Master Fu did not feel good when she scolded Qin Xiu. On the other hand, Old Madam Qin and Old Master Qin were already used to it and did not want to argue with their daughter-in-law. They also did not want to interfere in the affairs of their grandchildren. Their children and grandchildren had their own blessings. The two of them did not have much time left to worry about their children and grandchildren. They would let their children and grandchildren deal with their own problems. As for their daughter-in-law, let her say a few words. She would feel uncomfortable if she did not say a few words. Old Madam Qin and Old Master Qin no longer cared about the affairs of their children and grandchildren. Madam Qin went to Dengue Garden several times, but she didn't ask the two elders to come forward to persuade Qin Xiu. Thus, she asked Old Master Fu. Old Master Fu was no longer completely idle. Instead, he was teaching aeronautics at a university in the capital. He didn't have to go there every day. There were 2 major classes a week, which were specifically for graduate students. There were only 2 major classes every week, but the old teacher was very interested. He tried his best to impart everything he had learned after graduation. In addition, the old teacher's lectures were witty and humorous. Those extremely unfamiliar professional knowledge could be brought to life by the old teacher. In the words of his students, it was no longer cold knowledge, but 100 flowers garden, 100 treasures mountain, which made people want to explore deeper. The old man, who had a second job, happened to be at home today, so Mrs. Cheen came to visit. Mrs. Cheen had been looking for old Master Cheen several times, but to no avail. Today, she was overjoyed to find him. Within 5 minutes, they started talking about Cheen Xiao. Old mister, please persuade Xiao to not be too stubborn when he comes back. A man at 30 years of age should start a family and start a career. But Xiao, it doesn't allow me to intervene in this matter. As a mother, this junior can't help but feel uncomfortable in my heart when I see my son acting alone. You also watched Xiao grow up. When he was young, Xiao would definitely run to your house if he made any mistakes. Only you can persuade him and let him realize what mistakes he made. This time, Mrs. Cheen regarded old Master Fu as her savior. She choked out the bitterness in her heart and only hoped that old Master Fu could help her. Chapter 5080. The old man listened quietly and sighed in his heart for a while. He felt that Cheen Xiao was very good and was a rare talent. How could the Cheen family's daughter-in-law make mistakes everywhere? The red-eyed Mrs. Cheen lowered her head and took a tissue to wipe her eyes from time to time. Every word that came out of her mouth was suffused with a trace of bitterness. This junior really has no choice but to trouble old mister to help this junior talk to Xiao. He's already 30 years old. How could he still make me, his mother, so worried? Sister Cheen Ing is like this, and the always obedient and sensible Xiao is also like this. What kind of sin did this junior commit to make them angry with me? Most of the young people in the same generation as Xiao listen to their parents' arrangements to get married and have children. How could it be so difficult for me? Ding Kong doesn't care. The two elders also don't care. This junior's heart is very uncomfortable. After saying this, the red-eyed Mrs. Cheen took a tissue to wipe the corners of her eyes again. Facing Mrs. Cheen's request, the old man didn't immediately agree. He personally brewed a new tea for Mrs. Cheen. After Mrs. Cheen's mood stabilized a bit, the old man opened his mouth. Niece-in-law, since I've watched Xiao grow up and you've asked me for help, I'll take the liberty to tell you some things. The old man was indifferent and didn't care about the family's affairs, especially the family's junior's marriage. The old man wouldn't even say half a word. But the Cheen family wasn't his family. The two families had known each other for decades and had gone through the wind and rain together. The Cheen brothers were like his own nephews. Although it was inconvenient for the old man to intervene in some matters, Mrs. Cheen had already come to invite him. The old man slightly sighed in his heart and decided to speak properly. When Mrs. Cheen heard this, she immediately sat down in a dignified manner. Please speak. The old man's eyes, which had seen countless ups and downs and had become wiser with the passage of time, calmly looked at Mrs. Cheen. When he opened his mouth, his vigorous voice had a bit of seriousness that made Mrs. Cheen nervous. First of all, Xiao is already 30 years old and no longer a child who needed your care. He's now the youngest diplomat in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and shouldered the country's heavy responsibility. You made a diplomat who shouldered the country's heavy responsibility listen to your arrangements. If you tell him to go east, he will only go east and not west. Secondly, Slender has his own plans, and marriage is obviously not part of them for the time being. Your insistence will only confuse him and make him avoid you even more. Since you are so anxious to get him married, I will give my niece-in-law an idea. Before the old man could say anything, Mrs. Cheen's eyes lit up. If that's the case, why don't you go to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and make a scene? Make Cheen Xiao step down from his current position and go home to continue being an obedient son. You can think about it. Mrs. Cheen's expression changed. What kind of idea was this? No. How could the old man come up with such a terrible idea? It must be. Mrs. Cheen clenched the tissue in her hand uneasily. I can't do that. How could she ruin her son's bright future? Xiao, or has always been determined to be a diplomat since he was a child? Junior, Junior, how could I ruin Xiao-er's dream? Faced with old Master Fu's sharp gaze, Mrs. Qin's heart thundered as she clenched the crumpled paper ball in her hand. She suddenly didn't dare to stay in the Fu family any longer. She wanted to leave. Why don't you do this? Don't you need an obedient son who listens to you, listens to your arrangements, listens to your discipline, and listens to your instructions? Since you want it, then go for it. With Qin Xiu's personality, if his mother went to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and made a scene, he would definitely leave the ministry and go home to be your obedient son. Chapter 5081. Sir, this Junior isn't. Mrs. Qin still wanted to explain, but the old man, who had always been kind to juniors, smiled and asked, Isn't what? What you're doing now is. Who is Xiao? He's the youngest official in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but as his mother, you want to restrain him everywhere. You put pressure on him under the guise of doing good for him. He resisted and didn't want to listen to your arrangements, which made him unfilial. Niece-in-law, let me ask you, have you fulfilled your filial duties? Old Qin and his wife were disheartened by you and didn't want to manage the affairs anymore. Is this your filial piety? His expression was serious but not strict, and his continuous questioning was calm and peaceful. He responded with the wisdom of an old man who saw thousands of sails and was as indifferent as water, making Mrs. Qin unable to resist. You didn't fulfill your filial duties as a child, but forced Xiao-er to fulfill your so-called filial duties. Niece-in-law, this is selfish and self-determined filial piety. A man at 30 should start a family and start a career. That's right, this is the law of nature. But must you listen to your parents' arrangements and start a family and start a career to be filial and do great things? The old man's continuous questioning made Mrs. Qin's forehead sweat, and she was so nervous that she couldn't sit still. However, the old man didn't stop, and his voice didn't change much, as if he was talking about the most ordinary thing. But the more it was like this, the more nervous Mrs. Qin was. She really regretted coming to beg the old man. Go to Dangue Garden and see how many scientists of the older generation have never married. Elder Yin and Elder Su next door have never married. And how much contribution have they made to the country? Do you have the guts to ask Elder Yin and Elder Su if they're lonely if they're unmarried? Do you dare to ask? Mrs. Qin's face turned pale. She didn't have the guts to ask the country's meritorious officials, even if she was the ambassador's wife. I also heard that Inger fell in love with a soldier. The young man is said to be a major, tall and mighty, but you despised him for being a poor soldier. His family is in a small county, and his parents are only middle school teachers. You even slapped Inger on New Year's Eve with the excuse that your family doesn't match. Niece-in-law, you should ask yourself, do you feel that Xiao-er is too lonely if he doesn't get married? Or do you want to satisfy your own selfish desires and continue to control Inger and Xiao-er? It's obvious that Inger wants to get married, yet you want to stop her. You even despise the man's family background. It's obvious that Xiao doesn't want to get married for the time being. He wants to have a big career, yet you try every possible means to break his plan. Niece-in-law, you are not worried about your children. You're just thinking about yourself. With a pale complexion, Mrs. Qin's figure was somewhat swaying. She clearly wanted to ask the old man for advice, but in fact, she wanted the old man to step forward and make Xiao-er follow her. But who would have thought that the old man would scold her in the end? Mrs. Qin knew that she had come to the wrong place. After speaking for a long time, the old man felt a little tired. That's all I have to say. Niece-in-law, please don't come looking for me for these matters in the future. Although my relationship with the Qin family is closer than that of a family member, I have never interfered with the younger generation's marriage. Free love, even if it runs in the opposite direction, is better than having regrets from the beginning. Oh, you're going down a dead end. Go back and think about it. Everything will be clear once you figure it out. If she really could figure out, Mrs. Qin wouldn't have tormented Qin Xiu for so many years. She still felt that she didn't do anything wrong. She would definitely support her son's career, and marriage was an important matter that should be decided by the parents. Chapter 5082. For a prestigious family like theirs, the marriage of their children was a big deal. How could they allow the younger generation to mess around? Although she regretted leaving, Mrs. Chen's upbringing didn't make her leave the Fu family immediately. Old Master didn't ask her to leave either and just sat there quietly drinking tea. She was preparing for class, and now she had to spend some effort so she could have a good rest while drinking tea. After a moment of silence, Mrs. Chen sighed and said, "I'll remember what Old Master said. I'll talk to Xiao again. If he really wants to marry that girl, I won't insist anymore." She wanted to save some face in front of Old Master. Old Master didn't know that Qin Xiao had someone in his heart. Hearing this, Old Master frowned slightly and said, "Both siblings have met someone they like, but you don't agree to both of them. It's not that I don't agree, but I'm afraid that they will suffer more in the future. Inger likes a soldier. I admit that I don't like the man's family, but I asked Inger, and she said that the soldier is in the army all year round and can't take care of his wife and children. Marrying him is equivalent to not marrying him, and she still has to take care of his family. Marrying would mean suffering. Tell me, how could this junior agree to it?" On the eve of New Year's Eve, I slapped her in anger and my heart ached for her. As for Xiao, I saw that he liked a military academy student 2 years ago. She was quite good-looking, so I wanted to know more about her family. Who knew that Xiao would deny it and said that he didn't like her, so I gave up at that time. Some time ago, the lady from the Du family whom this junior took a fancy to told this junior that the military academy student Qin Xiao liked was an orphan. His cousin's family had committed a crime, and before they committed the crime, the cousin tried to rely on the Du family. I specifically asked the Du family and found out that the military academy student Xiao alike had a family that was unbearable. Do you think I would agree? Xiao is a diplomat, so how could he have a wife who would drag him down? Even if the other party graduated from a military academy, I wouldn't dare to gamble. Not to mention that the girl Xiao liked was... Mrs. Chen suddenly remembered something. She almost forgot that Jiai said that Li Jinyan also liked that military academy student. Li Jinyan was the old master's grandson. His grandson had fallen in love with a girl who was trying to climb up the social ladder. The old man couldn't just sit by and watch. At that time, he would definitely persuade Qin Xiao to give up on that girl. He would also order his grandson, Jin Yin, to stay away from that girl, surnamed Yi. Mrs. Chen subtly glanced outside the tea room. She came at the right time to see Jin Yin returning home from a visit. After taking a sip of tea, Mrs. Chen lowered her voice and said worriedly, "I also heard that Jin Yin likes that girl too. Even Commander-in-Chief Xia's only son likes her. That girl is quite capable. As a military academy student, she actually managed to make the best men in the capital fall in love with her." The old man was a little surprised. "Jin Yin likes it too? Family Xia's sixth brother likes her too? Family Xiao fella liked the princess of the Fu family. Since when did he like another military school student? Military school students, Jin Yin likes it too. Even the family Xiao likes it? What a coincidence. His precious granddaughter was also a military school student. Why did it feel like the military school student they were talking about was none other than his precious granddaughter?" Old Master Fu's expression turned cold. "Old Master, if you don't believe me, why don't you ask Jin Yin since he just came back?" Mrs. Chen, who still didn't know that she was about to get into trouble, was very certain. "I didn't lie at all." Chapter 5083. Although the old man was lenient towards the younger generation, it didn't mean that he was casual. He wouldn't judge a person's character just because of a few words. Moreover, saying that a boy with a family Xiao also liked her was simply nonsense. As a grandfather, how could he not know which family a boy with a family Xiao liked? He clearly liked the Fu family's precious princess. The old man didn't immediately ask his grandson. Instead, his benevolent face turned somewhat solemn. "Niece-in-law, let me ask you something. Whether the girl Xiao likes is good or bad, have you heard about it or have you verified it?" As a scientist, The old man was casual about life, but he had always been realistic and rigorous. He didn't believe Mrs. Chen's words. His grandson, Jean Yin, wasn't someone who was easy to fool. He was in the army all day long. So how could he like the same girl as Xiao? What a joke. Furthermore, saying that a boy with a family Xiao also liked her was the biggest joke in the world. The old man didn't need to ask further to confirm that Mrs. Chen's words weren't true and were all lies. However, he was so certain, which made the old man a little puzzled. That was why he asked this question. Facing the old man's sharp gaze, Mrs. Chen hesitated for a few seconds before she restrained her voice and softly replied, "I've investigated a bit. As for the rest, I found out from the wife of the deputy chief of staff. I don't think a dignified deputy chief of staff's wife would lie to me." The old man had a good temper, but if it were any other old man, he would have driven her away in anger. "What else did you investigate? Don't tell me you only found out where the girl Xiao or likes lives and who her parents are." Mrs. Chen sat up slightly, and there was a trace of embarrassment in her expression. Yes. Seeing the old man's cold expression, Mrs. Chen couldn't help but speed up her explanation. "This girl is a bit strange. I wanted to investigate it thoroughly, but other than where she lives, how many people she has, and which school she graduated from, I couldn't find any other information. I also sent people to her house, only to find out that her elders are no longer in the village, and the villagers know very little about her. But she knows her uncle's family like the back of her hand. How much money did they embezzle? How many bad things did they do? They're really a rotten family." This junior also found out that the reason why her uncle fell was because of that girl's revenge. "Old sir, tell me, how can I not be worried? It was probably because he was treated unfairly by his aunt and bullied by his cousin when he was young. When he grew up, he directly caused his uncle's family to die. Of course, her uncle's actions should be punished by the law. Junior isn't worried about anything else. What I'm worried about is that this girl's thoughts are too heavy and she likes to scheme in secret. Every time I think about how she personally destroyed her uncle's family, this junior shudders. Xiao Er's temperament is gentle, while the girl's temperament is distinct. This junior is worried that one day the two of you will turn against each other and become scarred. If that's the case, it's better to end it as soon as possible so that I won't get hurt in the future." The old man, whose expression had turned cold, didn't feel that it was a coincidence. Instead, he was 100% sure that the military school student Mrs. Chen was talking about was none other than his precious granddaughter. His granddaughter led a wandering life, suffered all kinds of torture, and almost died in the hands of the Yi family. Later, Yi Jifan and his wife, in order to prevent their granddaughter from taking the college entrance exam and to prevent her from standing out, constantly made moves before the exam. In the end, she clearly passed the #1 middle school, but in the end, she became an auditing student. Fortunately, his granddaughter worked hard and directly tore the notice, took a year off from school, and entered the provincial high school to skip a grade and completely escaped from Yi Jifan and his wife's clutches. Chapter 5084. They were already far away, but Yi Jifan's family of 3 was still unwilling to let them go. Even the old madam of the Yi family brought her daughter's family to torment his granddaughter. Such a vicious family was finally punished fairly by the law, but why did it become his granddaughter's fault in the Chen family's daughter-in-law's mouth? "Niece-in-law, don't come to me for help again. I really can't help you. If you ask for too much, you'll never be able to fulfill it. You should go home." The old man waved his hand and got up, no longer looking at Mrs. Chen. Mrs. Chen was stunned. "Old sir, you're not going to care? Aren't you going to ask Jean Yin? You should ask around. What you hear may be false, but seeing is believing. I believe that a girl who is liked by 3 children is definitely not someone who seeks personal gain, nor is she a girl with bad character. The descendants of the Chen family, family Xia, and Fu family can't all be blind. My grandson Jinyan often stays in the army. If he really likes a girl, I'm more than happy to oblige. Old Fu, come and send the guest off." Mrs. Chen was separated from the family by the old man and listed as a guest. From now on, it would be difficult for Mrs. Chin to visit the Fu family again. Uncle Fu quickly came out of the kitchen and asked Mrs. Chin to leave without asking for the reason. "Madam, I'll send you off." Mrs. Chin was panicking because she couldn't ask for help and had angered the old man. "Old sir, I really don't mean anything else. I just want to ask you, don't ask me." Even Xiao's grandparents didn't come forward. Although I watched Xiao grow up, I'm not a proper elder. How can I casually come forward? You said that the girl wasn't good and that the girl's family was rotten from the roots. I'll say one more thing today. To be able to grow up in such a family and finally rely on herself to walk on the road, such a girl's character is absolutely excellent. I'll ask you one more time. Has the girl that Xiao or the likes ever pestered him? Has she ever given him any hope? Never. If she really gave him hope, you wouldn't have come to me. Niece-in-law, you don't fancy such a good girl. You even despise her family background. So be it. Next time you see her, please bring her to my side. I will definitely introduce her to an excellent marriage. That's all I've said. Niece-in-law, there's no need to say anything more. I won't tell your in-laws about what happened today. I'll just pretend that you never came and I never saw you. In the end, Mrs. Chin's face turned pale. She knew that the old man was angry. However, she didn't even know how she had angered the old man. Was it because he said that Jinyan also liked the girl Xiao liked? She really did it out of kindness, reminding the old man not to let those girls who try to climb up the social ladder succeed. She really didn't have any other intentions. In the end, Mrs. Chin didn't go home. Instead, she scared the chauffeur and sent him to the hospital. The frightened Mrs. Chin's heart started to hurt again. In the Fu family, old Master Fu's face was livid as he said to his grandson, Li Jinyan, who was helping him to walk into the courtyard, "You're getting more and more ridiculous. How dare you come to me and speak ill of your sister? You're implying that your sister is out of her league with the Chin family. Climb the social ladder? Does the Fu family need to climb up the social ladder? You're really pissing me off." Li Jinyan, whose handsome face was as cold as water, was also angry. However, he couldn't add fuel to the fire. With a malicious look in his eyes, he comforted old Master Fu. "Please calm down. Mrs. Chin is spouting nonsense because she doesn't understand your sister. Why do you have to lower yourself to her level?" He was angry at himself, but he felt the most heartache for his sister. Chapter 5085. Li Jinyan was someone who didn't show his emotions on his face. Plus, his years in the military had honed his temperament and made him more stable and tolerant. Deep in his heart, he was clearly furious, but on the surface, there was no trace of anger in his words. He calmly persuaded the old man and accompanied him for a stroll in the small courtyard to relieve his anger. Gradually, the angry old man's expression eased. After thinking carefully for a while, the old man said, "Now that your sister has graduated and successfully transferred to the company, she has a new journey. Logically speaking, my previous worries don't exist anymore. So, I should let the outsiders know that your sister is my biological granddaughter. Originally, I thought that since your sister and uncle are both soldiers, soldiers should keep a low profile. There's no need to be too ostentatious in order to avoid criticism. But now, it seems that I've thought too much. The Fu family wants to keep a low profile, but they let people ride on your sister's head. They really think that your sister is an orphan with no one to rely on. I have to talk to the family Xia and see when we can announce your sister's identity. She's been hiding her identity for so many years. I don't feel good about it." Today, Yi Jian was humiliated by Mrs. Chin. The old man's heart ached so much that it was bleeding. She's suffered so much outside, and she's even been criticized by irrelevant people. "Jinyan, your sister has suffered too much." Li Jinyan knew the reason why he didn't immediately acknowledge Yi Qian. Later, because the Li family kept investigating who killed Li Chuhai, the old man had to delay his plans for Yi Qian. He didn't even tell his friends. Today, the old man saw his precious daughter being humiliated with his own eyes. He really didn't want to tolerate it anymore. Li Jinyan knew that the old man was upset, but this matter couldn't be messed up because of a moment of anger. He helped the old man to the pavilion. After the old man sat down, Li Jinyan massaged the old man's shoulders and said slowly, "As long as the Li family doesn't fall, once your sister is acknowledged, she will undoubtedly become the Li family's #1 suspect. When that time comes, with his connections, it will be easy for him to find out what happened to her." When I came back, I received a call from the Li family. My father secretly invited a rehabilitation team from abroad a year ago. It is said that he can walk slowly now, and his speech is much better than before. Based on the current situation, he can hold on for a few more years. Before he finds out who killed Li Chuhai and whether Annie left any descendants, he won't let himself fall so easily. The him here was Old Man Li. The old man frowned slightly. "You can get off the bed now? How come I've never heard of it? You have a lot of work on your hands." Now that you're an honorary professor at the university, it's normal that you don't know what's going on outside. If the old man didn't want to announce Yi Qian's identity, Li Jinyan wouldn't have told the old man these things. The Li family doesn't lack money or people. As long as one side of the paralyzed is willing to work hard, there are many examples of people who can walk again. The old man didn't say anything else, but there was a hint of seriousness in his peaceful expression. Li Jinyan's phone buzzed. He took out his phone and looked at the caller. There was a faint smile in his cold eyes. "Your chosen grandson-in-law is calling. Do you want to talk to him? My sister should be with him." Chapter 5086. My grandson-in-law is calling. Family Xia. The stern-looking old man immediately smiled, his anger gone. "Quick, answer it. I'll ask after you two are done." He didn't call home directly, but called his grandson first. The old man thought it must be something serious, so he waved his hand and motioned for Li Jinyan to move aside. Li Jinyan pressed the answer button and walked away. He and Xia Jinyuan had known each other for many years. Even though their relationship deepened because of Yi Qian, they rarely contacted each other via private phone. No, it should be said that they rarely even contacted each other via official phone. They were from different branches of the military and usually had their own things to do. It was rare for them to meet each other for official or private matters. Today, when Xia Jinyuan suddenly called, Li Jinyan also thought that it was something serious. Xia Jinyuan walked out of the military building and headed to the cafeteria. It was almost noon. He had been hungry since yesterday afternoon and urgently needed to fill his hungry stomach. His stomach needed to be filled, and he also needed to ask about official business. Xia Jinyuan heard the cold voice on the other side of the phone. He wanted to greet his future brother-in-law, but his brother-in-law didn't even need his question and said coldly, "Let's cut to the chase. I heard that Old Man Li can get out of bed now. It's said that they hired a top professional rehabilitation team from abroad. Is this true?" Xia Jinyuan didn't beat around the bush and asked directly. A few minutes ago, he heard from his father that he immediately called the Storm Commando's duty room when he came out of the building. When he found out that his brother-in-law was on vacation, he quickly called his private number. Yes, the news is correct. Li Ronghuan was secretly invited back from abroad a year and a half ago. Li Jinyan replied calmly. He could get out of bed and walk 3 months ago. I heard that he can walk more than 100 meters now. More than 2 years ago, Old Man Li suffered a stroke that left him paralyzed and bedridden. However, he did not give up on treatment because of this. Relying on his own connections and the connections of his eldest son, Li Jinyan's father, he had always invited the top medical team in the country to help Old Man Li recover. A year and a half ago, the second son, Li Ronghuan, had secretly hired a top rehabilitation team from abroad to treat him in secret. It was not difficult to see that the Li family was also guarding against outsiders. They did not want outsiders to know that Old Man Li, who had collapsed, could stand up and walk again. Not only did they hide it from outsiders, but they also hid it from Li Jinyan. When the news was confirmed, Xia Jinyuan's handsome face turned red. It seems that the Li family has been creating a false image for the past 2 years, hiding and waiting for the right time to make a big move. Outsiders thought that the Li family had ceased all activities, but in fact they were no longer as high-profile as before. Even the high-profile Madame Li, Du Jiai's mother, and Old Man Li's second wife, Madam Li, had unknowingly kept a low profile in the past 2 years. Now there was very little news about the Li family in the capital. If one had to say a few words, they were all similar regrets, such as, alas, the Li family has gone downhill. The heroes have left the stage. Or, since old man Li suffered a stroke and was paralyzed, it was like a collapsed building. There was no way for it to rise again. And so on. Everyone thought that the Li family had collapsed and could not be compared to the past. Who knew that even if old man Li suffered a stroke, he still survived? Even Li Jinyan's second uncle, Li Ronghuan, who used to be a painter and had a certain reputation, had stayed in the country most of the time in the past year to serve the old man. The people arranged in the Li family told him that the top rehabilitation medical team from abroad was invited by his elusive second uncle. Chapter 5087. Li Jinyan returned this time because he wanted to see his second uncle, Li Ronghuan, whom he had not seen for 11 years. What he found strange was that no one knew that his second uncle, Li Ronghuan, had returned. Even the servants in the Li residence did not know about it. Moreover, some of the older servants in the Li residence had been sent home over a year ago. This second uncle of the Li family, Li Jinyan's cold eyes became slightly more serious. No matter how unwilling he was to return to the Li family, he had to meet this second uncle who gave him a strange feeling. Li Jinyan looked up at the old man who was resting in the pavilion and said calmly, "When are you coming over?" "I'll come to visit Grandpa tomorrow." Xia Jinyuan knew that his brother-in-law was asking him where he was going. He did not immediately start the car. Instead, he sat in the car and asked again, "How much do you know about Li Ronghuan?" The painter and the Li family are all involved in politics. Old man Li doesn't have any objections to having such a different descendant. "I don't know. We haven't seen each other for 11 years. Li Jinyan had never hidden anything about the Li family from Xia Jinyuan, especially when the Li family was still investigating who killed Li Chuhai. He and Xia Jinyuan had to guard against the Li family, so there was no need to hide anything about the Li family from each other. Just like now, when Xia Jinyuan had doubts, he immediately came to ask him. As long as he knew something, he would tell him. The Li family is very complicated. Outsiders can only see the surface. As for how deep the family is and how many undercurrents there are, I can't see them even though I'm from the Li family. I have reservations about Li Ronghuan." Xia Jinyuan's cold, handsome face suddenly became more serious. "Is there something wrong with Li Ronghuan?" "I don't know. If there is a problem, I will tell you. Li Ronghuan has a certain reputation in the art world, but most of his awards are from abroad. He is much more famous abroad than in China. He has a clean record in China and has no criminal record. If there is something wrong with him, it will be more difficult to investigate than Li Chuhai. His brother-in-law would not speak without thinking. There must be something that made him suspicious, but it had not been confirmed yet. If you need anything, please do let me know. Jane Eyre's family is my family. I hope that our family will be safe and sound," Xia Jinyuan said solemnly. Li Jinyan's cold eyes flashed with a hint of a smile because of his words. The Fu family was his family, and now there was family Xia and sixth brother. Not bad. Yes, come over tomorrow. I'll go back to the Li family in the afternoon. If there's anything, feel free to contact me. Be careful. Xia Jinyuan reminded him that the Li family, although his brother-in-law's surname was Li, he was not from the same family as the Li family. He merely used the surname Li. However, it was precisely because of this that every time he returned to the Li family, Xia Jinyuan would feel an inexplicable sense of danger. He always felt that his brother-in-law was not returning home, but entering a tiger's den. Old man Li was hypocritical and pretentious all his life. He dared to kill his own brother and was extremely ruthless. He was a father who only cared about his own life. It was a miracle that his brother-in-law, who lost his mother when he was young, was still alive. Just like his little fox, it was a miracle that the two siblings were still alive. Xia Jinyuan also greeted the old man and said that he would come over the next day. He only ended the call when the old man laughed heartily. The next day, Xia Jinyuan woke up early and drove to Dangwei Garden. The healthy master Xia moved the vegetables he planted into the trunk of the car. Even though there was someone serving him, Master Xia insisted on doing it himself. Chapter 5088. Seeing this, old Madame Xia was very worried. Her grandson went to her granddaughter-in-law's house to visit the elders, but the old man only asked her grandson to bring 3 small bags of vegetables. Wasn't he afraid that her grandson wouldn't even be able to enter her house? Master Xia, who didn't think there was a problem, carefully put the 3 bags of watery, green vegetables away and reminded Xia Jinyuan, "Sixth brother, when you go, you must personally hand these vegetables to the old man. Tell him that I grew these myself and can't give them away. Do you hear me?" Delivering the vegetables was not the point, but the point was that these vegetables were all grown by Master Xia himself. Xia Jinyuan looked at the 3 plastic bags that were less than half filled with vegetables and was in a dilemma. You only have a few vegetables in your soil. If you give them all to the old man, why don't you leave some for yourself? In exchange, Master Xia punched him. How dare he make fun of him for not knowing how to grow vegetables? Old Madame Xia felt that her old man was becoming more and more like a child as he aged. She quickly pulled her obedient grandson and stuffed him into the car. "Why are you wasting time with your grandfather? It's getting late. Go and visit the old man. He's your wife's grandfather. If you don't show more filial piety, your wife won't forgive you." She stuffed him into the car and closed the door with a bang. Old Madame Xia, whose hair was silver, was exceptionally healthy. Xia Jinyuan, who had returned to family Xia's old house yesterday afternoon, looked at the time. It was a bit past 6 in the morning. How could this be considered late? When he went to Dangwei Garden, Xia Jinyuan was holding 3 bags of vegetables that could have been filled in 1 big plastic bag, but Master Xia had divided them into 3 small plastic bags, each half filled. He went to visit the old man. Li Jinyan looked at Xia Jinyuan, who came to the door with 3 bags of vegetables, and his cold, handsome face twitched slightly. "You even went to the market? My grandfather planted them when he was free." Xia Jinyuan was also very helpless. He didn't want to come to the old man's door with 3 bags of vegetables. He specially instructed me to hand them to Grandpa and tell him that he planted them himself. From digging the soil to fertilizing the seeds, he did it all himself. The future brother-in-law and future brother-in-law looked at each other. Therefore, there must be some secret between them. The old man was very interested in the 3 small bags of vegetables that Xia Jinyuan brought up. He personally took them and brought them to the kitchen. He said to Uncle Fu, who was still making breakfast, "I stir-fried a dish this morning. Although the quantity is a little small, it's still a success." Xia Jinyuan, who came early in the morning, did not eat breakfast. Although the old man was very happy to see his grandson-in-law, he still criticized him. How could he come over without breakfast? It was easy for him to starve. Initially, the old man only criticized Xia Jinyuan, but when he remembered that his grandson was also a soldier, he decided to criticize Li Jinyan as well. In the army, the 2 of them had always been in charge of lecturing people. Now that they were in front of the old man, they could only be obedient and obedient. They humbly accepted the old man's criticism and did not dare to refute it all. After a few minutes of lecturing, it was time for breakfast. Uncle Fu, who was busy in the kitchen, glanced at the old man a few times. He was so energetic that Uncle Fu secretly laughed in the kitchen for a long time before he came out with breakfast. Great, the Fu family today was great. No, it should be said that ever since the princess of the Fu family came back, the Fu family was getting better day by day. The old man's body was getting stronger day by day. It seemed that he would have no problem living for another 10 or 20 years. The old man and Master Xia were the same age. If he lived another 10 or 20 years, he would be more than 100 years old. Chapter 5089. After Uncle Fu placed the vegetables that Master Xia had personally picked on the table, old Master Fu told him the story of the vegetables. It was just a bet between the 2 of them. Old Master Fu said that Master Xia had been fighting wars all his life, but in the end, he had never grown vegetables. Life was lacking in joy. Master Xia's eyes widened. If he didn't grow vegetables, he would lack in joy? What twisted logic! Then old Master Fu talked about the interesting things he had done in the past, which made Master Xia eager to try. In the end, old Master Fu shook his head. No, I'm afraid that a rough person like you can't grow vegetables. Don't waste the seeds. Master Xia, who did not accept it on the surface, remembered it in his heart. He said that he couldn't grow vegetables. He insisted on growing them. From winter to spring, Master Xia had grown vegetables for the first time in his life. He took care of them so carefully that he even used his chopsticks to catch the insects one by one. He did not eat the first batch of vegetables in his life, so he quickly pulled them all out and brought them to old Master Fu. He used his actions to tell old Master Fu that a rough person like him could also grow vegetables. After listening to this little story, Li Jinyan's cold expression turned into a warm smile. After his sister returned home, the Fu family's laughter was filled with happiness, and the old man's lifeless life had been reborn. Just like now, one could feel that the old man was living a comfortable life and had hope in his smile. After breakfast, the two of them accompanied old Master Fu for a walk along the tree-lined path in Dangui Garden. The two of them accompanied and took care of him. Old Master Fu smiled so much that the wrinkles around his eyes deepened. Old Master Qin, who had heard the commotion, came over. When he saw them, he smiled and said, "Old Fu, no wonder you didn't ask me to play chess yesterday. It turns out that Jin Yin is back." Looking at Xia Jinyuan, old Master Qin was a little jealous. "Even your grandson-in-law came back to accompany you. Old Man Fu, oh, old man Fu, I'm really envious of your old age." It was the first time Xia Jinyuan brought Yi Qian back to family Xia. Coincidentally, old Master Qin and old Madam Qin were also visiting family Xia. After some introductions, old Master Qin found out that the sixth son of family Xia had a beautiful girlfriend. Later, when Yi Qian returned to Dangui Garden, she bumped into old Master Qin, who was chatting with old Master Fu and the diplomat, Qin Xiu. Therefore, old Master Qin, Qin Xiu, and old Madam Qin all knew that Yi Qian was old Master Fu's biological granddaughter. When old Master Qin saw that Xia Jinyuan was also there, he was not surprised. Instead, he was happy for his old friend. The sweetness came after the bitterness. Indeed, the sweetness came after the bitterness. With old Master Qin's participation, some topics, such as the Li family, could not be discussed anymore. They talked about the country, social news, and foreign affairs. Xia Jinyuan and Li Jinyan listened attentively to every word that the two knowledgeable old men said. After a long walk, they passed by the Qin family's gate. Old Master Qin had no intention of going home. He said to old Master Qin, "Let's go to your house and play chess." He did not enter the house and walked very quickly. It was obvious that old Master Qin did not want to go home at all. The Qin family was also quite lively. Mrs. Qin, who came to Dingwei Garden early in the morning to visit her in-laws, Madame Li, and her daughter, Du Jiaoyi, were also there. It was Madame Li's first time at the Qin family's gate. She smiled and looked very elegant. Du Jiaoyi, who was sitting next to her, was even more elegant. She looked like a good daughter raised by a good family. Unfortunately, the mother and daughter should not have talked about Yi Qian. Chapter 5090. If old Madam Qin didn't know Yi Qian's identity, she would just treat it as gossip and wouldn't take it to heart. However, old Madam Qin already knew that the girl the family Xia liked was old Master Fu's granddaughter. As the elder brother, Li Jinyan naturally liked the younger sister of the Fu family. The Qin and Fu families had a good relationship. Old Madam Qin knew the relationship between Li Jinyan and the Li family. Old Madam Qin was not happy that her daughter-in-law suddenly brought her and her daughter to the Qin family. Now, they were talking about Yi Jin again. Old Madam Qin was so angry that her fingers were trembling. She listened to Madame Li and her daughter-in-law echoing each other. She looked at Madame Li's soft persuasion and Du Jiaoling, who seemed to speak for Yi Jian but was actually adding fuel to the fire. However, her daughter-in-law didn't notice it at all. Alas, the world has really changed. Old madam, don't you think people are too impetuous? They don't want to live a down-to-earth life, but they want to climb up by stepping on other people's shoulders. They even think that they have the ability to make so many men bow down to them. Alas, girls should have self-respect and self-respect. Madam Li talked about the problem of family education and then brought the topic to Yi Qian. She frowned and sighed worriedly. She was raised without parents. Although she is pitiful, she still lacks discipline. No matter how smart she is, her mind is messy. She doesn't deal with things openly and has lost her purity. Old Madam Qin was an old woman who had experienced many hardships. The Qin family could still become a diplomatic family after returning from abroad. Old Madam Qin's contributions were undeniable. Although she was old now and her eyes were not as clear as before, she was open-minded. Madam Li's words were not enough to drive a wedge between them. Old Madam Qin, who was sitting in the main seat, did not answer. Madam Qin, who had brought Yi Qian here, was afraid that Madam Li would be embarrassed, so she smiled elegantly and said, "Who said otherwise? In fact, it's all because she is not satisfied and doesn't know her own worth. She relies on her talent and looks to curry favor everywhere. No matter how beautiful such a girl is, it's just a flash in the pan. She won't last long. Jai is still the best. She's outstanding in everything and doesn't even rely on her family. Mom, don't judge Jai just because she's 28. She entered the Ministry of Foreign Affairs on her own. So far, Mrs. Qin still felt that Du Jai was better than the other girl she had chosen. Old Madam Qin, who didn't say much, was really angry at this moment. She wasn't angry at Madam Li for gossiping. She was angry that the daughter-in-law she chose actually lost the most basic judgment of right and wrong in order to compete with her eldest uncle and youngest uncle's family. There were so many noble ladies in the capital, and so many daughters from good families, but they just had to keep an eye on the Du family. How many bewitching potions had this madam of the Du family fed her daughter-in-law? It had already been a few years, but she was still trying to bring the children of the two families together. How difficult was it for the Du family's daughter to marry? She clearly knew that Xiao didn't like her, yet she still hadn't given up after so many years. She was already 28 years old. Did she think that she could continue to be willful when she was only 21 or 22? If it weren't for the mother and daughter coming to visit today, she wouldn't have known that Xiao liked Old Fu's granddaughter. Old Fu's granddaughter was clearly 100 times better than the Du family's daughter. Not only did her daughter-in-law not like her, but she even said that Old Fu's granddaughter only had a face and was trying to curry favor everywhere. She was really angered to the point that the anger that she hadn't felt for many years rushed to the top of her head. Chapter 5091. Old Madam Qin suppressed her anger and didn't let the younger generation see it. She was already so old and wouldn't let others laugh at her. Du Jai lowered her head bashfully at Madam Qin's compliment. She breathed a sigh of relief in her heart. Today's sudden visit had left her feeling unsettled and restless, not even for a second. Now, she could finally breathe a sigh of relief. Old Madam Qin looked at her with kind eyes and a satisfied smile. Old Madam Qin's impression of her shouldn't be bad. Du Jai, who breathed a sigh of relief, slowly thought in her heart, and her bearing became more dignified. Old Madam Li was used to cultivating Du Jai's bearing with strict care. She believed that a person's family background could be seen at a glance. Moreover, it was the face of a prestigious family. If one didn't have the bearing to represent the face of a prestigious family, they would definitely not be presentable. In fact, it was indeed so. If one didn't have the bearing, it would be difficult to be presentable. But in the end, she was raised by Old Madam Li. Old Madam Li herself had the bearing of a noble lady, and her daughter, Du Jai, also had the bearing. However, if the upper beam was not straight, the lower beam would be crooked. No matter how good the bearing was, it couldn't hide the malice in the heart. Especially if someone was hindering their future, they would definitely think of ways to get rid of them. This was what Old Madam Li taught Old Madam Li, and Old Madam Li taught Du Jai. If one didn't look out for himself, heaven and earth would destroy him. It was normal to seek for one's own interests, but indiscriminately, based on one's own preferences and seeking for one's own interests by pushing down others, that was evil. Old Madam Chin's malice towards Yi Qian could be clearly seen from the mother and daughter. Old Fu's granddaughter didn't allow them to point fingers at her. Old Madam Qin, who had been smiling kindly, slowly sipped the nourishing flower tea and sighed. Now that I'm old, I hate talking about things that need to be guessed. You said that Xiao has a girl he likes. I have to thank you. Otherwise, as a grandmother, I wouldn't know that my grandson has a girl he likes. Du Jiayi lowered her head and smiled faintly. A cold light flashed in her eyes. Qin Xiao certainly wouldn't say it, because he didn't dare to. The old madam was from a prestigious family. How could she allow her granddaughter-in-law to be a wild girl of unknown origin? Not to mention that she was involved with several men. Madam Li and Madam Qin looked at each other secretly. Madam Qin returned a smile, but for some reason, Madam Li's heart was in a mess. Looking at old Madam Qin, who had a slight smile on her face and was completely unable to tell what she was thinking, Madam Li could not help but clench her fists slightly. It was as if a stone had been thrown into her heart, so heavy that she could not breathe at all. Madam Li, I need to say a few words in front of you today. I hope Madam Li doesn't mind. It's our honor to be able to receive old Madam's guidance. The uneasiness in her heart expanded like ripples of water. Old Madam Qin smiled faintly. No matter how bad other girls are, there's still the pearls in other people's palms. We can't tolerate other people's criticism. Your girl is delicate, and other girls are also delicate. Their family background may not be better than the Du families, but other people don't care about your family background. They only want to live comfortably. Why do you have to trample on other people's delicate girls to flatter your own girl? In any case, you're from a prestigious family. Doing things like this is really bad. Madam Li was so shocked that she almost jumped up. Fortunately, she had some skills and didn't lose her composure on the spot. She was barely able to maintain her facial expression. Chapter 5092. However, Du Jiayi, who was sitting next to her, couldn't. Her face instantly seemed to have been brushed with a layer of lime. It was so pale that there wasn't a trace of blood. Grandma Qin was saying that her family had no manners and was criticizing others everywhere. It was clearly the truth. Du Jiayi, who was shocked and panicked, calmed herself down and didn't immediately explain. If she rashly interrupted old Madam Qin again, it would really be rude. You, as the daughter-in-law of the Qin family, please be more careful when you're outside. Today, as your mother-in-law, I have to say something in front of you. No matter how convincing the words of others sound, they might not necessarily be true. You have to see, think, and distinguish for yourself. If you don't even have the ability to distinguish between right and wrong, it's better for you to quietly rest at home in the future and let the father and son take good care of you. Ever since Mrs. Qin married into the Qin family for decades, she had always been able to speak in front of old Madam. Sometimes, when old Madam had some problems, she would ask Mrs. Qin if she had any good ideas to solve them. Old Madam Qin liked her more than her two sisters-in-law, who had always been out of the province. Even if she made mistakes sometimes, old Madam Qin had never said anything harsh. She would only tell Mrs. Qin what she did wrong and what she needed to change. Today, in front of outsiders, old Madam Qin directly told Mrs. Qin to rest at home in the future and to walk less outside. Mrs. Qin, who had never been scolded by her mother-in-law, instantly felt her blood turn cold and her hands and feet stiffen. Mom, Mrs. Qin wanted to explain, but even her tongue felt stiff. Old Madam Qin didn't need her daughter-in-law's explanation. She waved her hand tiredly. Okay, I know what you're thinking. There are guests here, so take good care of them. I have some indigestion, so I'm going out for a walk. Then, old Madam Qin slowly stood up. Seeing this, Mrs. Li's heart thumped violently. Wrong, it was all wrong today. It wasn't that old Madam Qin didn't care about Qin Xiao, nor was it that she didn't care about family status. It was just that she had long been dissatisfied with Mrs. Cheen. Madame Cheen had other plans when she invited them to meet old Madame Cheen. She wanted to use the two of them to let old Madame Cheen know what kind of person Yi Qian was. Then, old Madame Cheen would step in and stop Qin Xiu from having feelings for Yi Qian. Madame Li's mind was racing, and she was both embarrassed and annoyed. She had always been the one to use others, but she didn't expect that today she would become Madame Cheen's. She could only blame herself for being too impatient and never getting in touch with old Madame Cheen, which led to today's matter. In the past, the Iron Lady, old Madame Cheen, was indeed formidable. Just by talking about Yi Qian in front of her and her daughter, she had given old Madame Cheen the opportunity to teach her daughter-in-law a lesson and even humiliated her in Jai. In the future, if she wanted to please old Madame Cheen, there would be no way. At this moment, Madame Li knew that her daughter had made a mistake by marrying into the Cheen family and had no other choice. Not only did she have no other choice, but old Madame Cheen would also think that they were uneducated and only knew how to gossip. If Madame Li could think of this, then so could Du Jai, who was smart and calculative. With a layer of lime powder on her face, she became calmer and calmer. Seeing old Madame Cheen slowly walk out with the help of the servants, Du Jai, whose eyes darkened, gritted her teeth, and suddenly got up to walk quickly toward old Madame Cheen. "Grandma Cheen, please wait." The young woman's legs were good, so she quickly ran to old Madame Cheen. Under old Madame Cheen's gaze, which was so faint that it made her panic, Du Jai bowed deeply to old Madame Cheen. Seeing this, Madame Li, whose face had been tense, immediately breathed a sigh of relief. Chapter 5093. Mrs. Cheen pushed Mrs. Li and her daughter out to get Mrs. Cheen to help her. Mrs. Li, on the other hand, felt sorry for her daughter who wouldn't marry anyone other than Qin Xiu, so she made a mistake and fell into Mrs. Cheen's trap. This was her fault, and she couldn't blame anyone else. Madame Cheen's ultimate goal was to let old Madame Cheen know how bad the woman Qin Xiu liked was. With Jai as a comparison, old Madame Cheen would definitely accept Jai, and in turn persuade Qin Xiu to accept Jai. Therefore, she had no right to blame Mrs. Cheen and could only accept it. In order to let her daughter get what she wanted, she accepted it. She accepted Mrs. Cheen's trap, but she couldn't admit that Mrs. Cheen thought her daughter was bad. Jai had been smart since she was a child and was liked by the elders. She was talented and resourceful. If she married Qin Xiu, she would definitely be a good wife and wouldn't be a burden to Qin Xiu. Therefore, she couldn't let old Madame Cheen think that her daughter was inferior. Mrs. Li was still thinking about how to make up for it when her daughter suddenly stood up. She knew her daughter had a solution. Mrs. Li had always been confident in Du Jai. A few years ago, she was still a little unstable, but these years she had restrained herself a lot. Especially after entering the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, she became more mature and wouldn't show it immediately even if there was a big problem. Since her daughter dared to stop Mrs. Cheen now, she naturally had a good solution. Du Jai, who stopped Mrs. Cheen, didn't panic at all. She stood there like a blooming flower, beautiful and generous. She bowed deeply and then slowly stood up to thank her sincerely. "Grandma Cheen, Jai already knows where she was wrong. Thank you very much for your advice. Jai won't make similar mistakes in the future." Although Jai is in the wrong, Grandma Cheen, every word that Jai said is absolutely true. "Old madam, please investigate thoroughly." This was a desperate struggle to survive. A girl who could take the initiative to admit her mistake, and it was the first time she met her. Mrs. Cheen couldn't help but think highly of Du Jai. However, she only admitted that she had made a mistake and didn't know what her real mistake was. Old Madame Cheen didn't think of pointing it out bit by bit. It was inappropriate for an outsider like her to point out his family matters and his children. "You," old Madame Cheen sighed with a smile. "Grandma Cheen knows you are a good person. Go back and accompany your mother. As for the matter between you and Xiu, marriage is all about fate. You've done enough for Xiu, and Grandma Cheen is aware of it. But in the end, There's no fate between you two. Good girl, Xiao isn't worth your effort, nor is he worth your weight. You can find a boyfriend who is 100 times better than Xiao. Live your life well in the future. Don't continue waiting for someone who isn't worth waiting for. You're still young. After that, old Madam Qin walked past Du Jai slowly with a smile. Since he had already said so much, he probably wouldn't continue to pester him. Thank you for your reminder, Grandma Qin. Jai understands. Du Jai took a deep breath, turned sideways, and slightly bowed her head, respectfully watching old Madam Qin leave. Old Madam Qin, who passed by, said again, "What a good girl." Then she slowly walked to the door with the help of the servant. But when she passed by, she faintly glanced at Du Jai's naturally hanging hands. Seeing her secretly clenching into fists and hearing her deep breath, old Madam Qin shook her head and sighed inwardly. A good girl, beautiful and smart, but her heart was not right and damaged her foundation. What a pity, what a pity, what a pity. Chapter 5094. After old Madam Qin left, the living room suddenly became very quiet. Du Jai sat back on the sofa and said softly, "Auntie, my mother and I will visit Grandpa Qin and Grandma Qin again next time. I think Annie will stay with them later, so I won't go shopping with you in the afternoon." The original plan was to have lunch with the Qin family and go out together in the afternoon. Now that things had come to this, how could she be in the mood to go shopping in the afternoon? Madame Li's heart was throbbing with pain. No matter how angry she was, she could only hold it in. Hearing this, she calmed herself down and said, "You, accompany old Madam. Old Madam is old and doesn't care much now, so she naturally thinks everything is good. Today I was the bad guy. For Jai and Xiao, I lost my face. I only hate myself for not being able to persuade old Madam. I think old Madam is still angry with me for talking too much. You are old Madam's daughter-in-law. Help me apologize to old Madam and talk to her for a while. I believe that old Madam understands. It's just that she won't be able to accept it in such a short time." Her daughter ran to apologize to old Madam and said that she would visit them again next time. However, she still didn't give up on Qin Xiao. She also didn't want to give up on Qin Xiao as her son-in-law. Both mother and daughter took turns to comfort Madam Qin. Finally, Madam Qin's complexion improved a little. She held Madame Li's hand and said sincerely, "You know how much I like Jai. Otherwise, why would I bring Jai to visit the two elders? I was wrong today. I thought that the two children were not young anymore, so I was anxious to get them married. That's right. If not, Madame Li wouldn't have let it go today. It's all for the good of the children. I can understand. Sai, accompany old Madam Jai, and I will go back first." Madame Li also held Madam Qin's hand. For her daughter, she had to endure. How could Madam Qin have the face to stay? Her face was still pale, but could she leave? Of course not. She had to stay and accompany old Madam. After sending the mother and daughter off, Mrs. Qin adjusted her emotions and went out to look for old Mrs. Qin. After leaving Dengue Garden and getting into the car, Madame Li's face turned completely cold. "Jai, you heard old Madam Qin's words clearly. Old Madam wants you to give up. What about you? Do you want to continue or give up?" Du Jai's eyes instantly turned red when she heard the question. She held back her tears, and her voice trembled uncontrollably. "Mom, can I give up? Tell me, can I give up? I fell in love with Qin Xiao when I was 21. I'm 28 this year. I've liked him for 7 years. Do you think I can give up? I can't accept this. I can't accept this. How much have I sacrificed for him? I retired from the army. I worked hard to enter the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I worked hard to get close to him, and I even went along with his wishes. But what about him? He doesn't even have me in his eyes. There is no me at all. I want to give up. I really want to give up. But every time I think about what I've done for the past 7 years, I can't accept it. I can't accept it. Yi Qian, she didn't do anything. Why does she have to be liked by Qin Xiao? Why does everyone like her? What's so good about her? What's so good about her? I want all of them to like her." Madame Li's heart ached when she heard her daughter's tearful questioning. She reached out to hug her crying daughter and coaxed her lovingly. Don't cry, don't cry. It's not that you're not good. It's that Qin Xiu didn't see the good in you. Jiai, you've done well enough. You've done well. It wasn't that her daughter wasn't good, but that someone was obstructing her daughter's happiness. Madame Li's eyes gradually darkened. Chapter 5095. One of the most painful things in the world was persistence. If you were too persistent, you would suffer the most. However, if you pushed all the problems to others and thought that it was because of others that you couldn't get what you wanted, such persistence was not persistence, but destruction. Du Jiai persisted even when she couldn't get what she wanted, and Mrs. Li played a big part in it. Du Jiai was used to getting whatever she wanted, and she was even more used to using all means at her disposal to get what she wanted. When she kicked an iron plate one day and realized that things were out of her control, Du Jiai's first reaction wasn't self-reflection, but revenge. Hearing Mrs. Li's comfort, Du Jiai raised her hand to wipe the tears on her face. She restrained all her expression, as if she had never shouted. Mom, did I really do well? But why does Qin Xiu still like Yi Qian? Do you think that without her, everything will be better? Will it be? Will it be? There was a twisted persistence in her voice. Mrs. Li hugged Du Jiai tightly and said slowly word by word, Don't think too much. I said you did a good job, but Qin Xiu didn't see how good you are. Jiai, I know Qin Xiu is a good person, but I want to see you live well. You've worked hard and put in a lot of effort. I know that, and so does your Aunt Qin. However, Mrs. Qin was right. You and Qin Xiu are not destined to be together. You're not destined to be together. Qin Xiu was not only chosen by Du Jiai, but also by Mrs. Li. He had a good character and family background. In addition, Qin Xiu was very outstanding. In the whole capital, as long as there were daughters of marriageable age and knew the Qin family, basically all of them were interested in him. In addition, Mrs. Qin was more active and attended some of the upper-class gatherings from time to time. It could be said that Qin Xiu was much more popular than Xia Jinyuan. In the face of such a good son-in-law, Madame Li asked her daughter, Du Jiai, to give up. She couldn't bear to see her daughter continue to waste and suffer. Old Madame Qin's attitude also made Madame Li realize how difficult it was for her daughter to marry into the Qin family. Even if Madame Qin agreed, as long as Qin Xiu didn't agree, old Madame Qin would definitely stand on Qin Xiu's side. She wouldn't force Qin Xiu to lower her head because of this. Realizing that Madame Qin couldn't decide Qin Xiu's marriage, Madame Li knew that it was difficult to continue. Now, seeing that old Madame Qin was obviously on Qin Xiu's side and wouldn't come forward to deal with it, Madame Li knew that it was useless to continue. Now that things had come to this, she didn't want her daughter to continue suffering. It had been 7 years. Since they weren't fated to be together, it was better to let go. Letting go sounded easy, but it was far too difficult to do. Especially for people like Du Jiai, who couldn't get what she wanted, it was a perverted obsession. Asking her to give up now was undoubtedly worse than killing her. Mom, do you mean I should give up Qin Xiu to Yi Qian? Du Jiai smiled. It was a cold and gloomy smile. I admit that I lost to someone who's better than me in everything. But I won't admit that I lost to Yi Qian. I definitely won't admit it. Du Jiai wasn't the only one who didn't admit it. Even Madame Li herself didn't want to admit it. Her daughter was outstanding in every aspect. She was talented, beautiful, and had a good family background. Yet, she was defeated by a girl from a remote village who only wanted to climb up the social ladder. Madame Li couldn't accept it in her heart. How could her daughter, who she had carefully raised, be defeated by a girl from a remote village? Chapter 5096. Madame Li would never admit that she had lost, just like how Du Jiai would never admit that she had lost. Their pride would never allow them to lower their heads and admit defeat. Madame Li also didn't think that Yi Qian had won just because her daughter had lost. She let go of her arm and held Du Jiai's hand with one hand. Seeing that her daughter's eyes were red from crying, Madame Li's heart ached for her daughter. She pulled herself together and said in a low voice, Yi Qian and Qin Xiu aren't together. Jai, you didn't lose. I didn't ask you to give Qin Xiu to Yi Qian. Madame Qin has a strong opinion of Yi Qian. She will never agree to let Yi Qian marry into the Qin family and become her daughter-in-law. Although old Madame Qin supports Qin Xiu, she will definitely take what we said today to heart. She will definitely investigate in secret. As long as old Madame investigates and finds out what kind of person Yi Qian is, no matter how much Qin Xiu likes her, and no matter how much old Madame loves Qin Xiu, she will never agree. So, you didn't lose to Yi Qian, and Yi Qian will never win against you. I won't give her a chance to win against you. Won't give Yi Qian a chance to win against me. Du Jia stared at Madame Li, who had always supported her. She then looked down at her hand that was being held. Just like when she was a child, when she was wronged, this pair of hands had always persisted and never changed. Mom, as long as Qin Xiu likes Yi Qian will win against me. As long as she's fine, she will win against me. As Du Jia spoke, she slowly looked up and stared at Madame Li. Mom, where did she come from? Can we send her back there? She couldn't get Qin Xiu because Qin Xiu fell in love with Yi Qian. He liked her so much that he didn't give her another chance. Although she had never heard Qin Xiu admit that he liked Yi Qian, nor had she seen the two of them together, she still felt a stab in her heart. This stab pierced her heart until it was dripping with blood. Every time she thought about how the man she had liked for 7 years liked a mountain girl whom she looked down on and who didn't deserve Qin Xiu's love, her heart would always hurt. Now he was telling her that she and Qin Xiu were not fated to be together. Fine, she accepted it. Before she accepted him, she had to pull out the thorn in her heart. Only by pulling it out could she live a good life and find a boyfriend who was 100 times better than Qin Xiu. In the face of her daughter's calm request, Madame Li took a while to answer. Okay, she had known about Yi Qian's existence since her freshman year through Yi Jifan's family. At that time, she really didn't expect that she would become an obstacle to her daughter's happiness. If she had known that she would be a hidden danger, she would have dealt with her with Yi Jifan's family back then. Although it was a little difficult to send her back to where she came from, as long as she thought of a plan, it wasn't impossible. As the car drove steadily, Madame Li, who was sitting quietly in the car, began to plan in her heart. Seeing this, Du Jia tilted her head to look at the passing scenery outside the car, the corner of her lips curling into a cold smile. Yi Qian, you want to compete with me? Do you have a right to? Don't think that just because Qin Xiu, Xia Jinyuan, and Li Jinyan are protecting you, we can't do anything to you. You're just an orphan and you want to have a meteoric rise? Ha, dream on. At the Fu family's residence in Dangui Garden, old Madame Qin, who had just arrived, heard her husband laughing loudly. You have a navy and an army. You only need an air force to complete the navy, the army, and the air force. Why don't you let Miss Jian join the air force? The three of you are just right. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.